Hey everyone, this is What If Fan bringing you another part of What If Luffy Became a Marine. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Please make sure to support the creator. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also, a quick update, the story What If Ichigo Had a Different Zanpakuto is now on hold as we caught up with the author. So once again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the next project should be on this channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if sign-in system in high school DxD? What if Ichigo awoke his true powers? What if Mangaka in One Piece world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next on the channel. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 16, What It Takes to Be a Doctor. Are you sure we're going the right way? Zoro raised his eyebrow, running alongside Smoker. What do you mean? Of course I'm sure. Smoker yelled back. He jerked his chin towards the mountain in the distance. The mountain's right there. We just have to head straight towards it. Zoro frowned, pointing to his right. I could have sworn the path was that way. Could you be any more clueless? Sanji sighed. Shut up, Arrow Cook. I know what I'm doing. Zoro yelled back. Luffy stirred slightly on Smoker's back, groaning. Shut up, both of you. If Luffy's condition gets any worse, you'll have several hells to pay for. Smoker shouted them down. Zoro glanced at Luffy. He'll be fine. Smoker gritted his teeth. It's not about whether he's going to be fine or not, it's about what might happen if certain people find out about this. Why? What's going to happen? Sanji raised an eyebrow. Smoker shivered, though not from the cold. You don't want to know. Somewhere else on the Grand Line. Garp glared at the piece of Vivre card that had Luffy's name on it. It was less than half the original size now, with the ends of the paper smoldering dangerously. In front of him, both Helmeppo and Kobe were training themselves diligently, sparring against each other with wooden swords. Garp paid no attention to them, however. He just hoped a certain individual in the calm belt might have chosen not to notice her part of Luffy's Vivre card today. Unfortunately, knowing how she was like, she would never let it out of her sights. Most likely, Sengoku was already getting an earful from her right now, probably with threats of war too. Luffy. Garp gripped the piece of paper tightly. His attempts to contact him through the Den Mushi ended up fruitless. Fortunately, a few hours ago, Smoker had already contacted them about Luffy's condition and the possibility of Crocodile's treachery, prompting them to send a warship to Alabasta to investigate. Garp finally turned his attention back to the two new trainees he had taken under his wing, both already panting and gasping from the strain of their training. Garp frowned. Luffy had endured a training 100 times more intensive than the one they were going through. He wondered if the others had been right about him being too tough on Luffy. He huffed indignantly. Of course not, Luffy didn't even mutter a complaint even once after all. That's why he's already so strong. Perhaps even a little too strong? Garp scratched his chin, a little bit unsure now. He shook those thoughts away immediately. Of course there's no such thing as being too strong. In fact, if he had a say in anything, he would still say Luffy was still weak. He glanced down at the Vivre card again. If he was already strong, he wouldn't be struggling so much now, would he? Flashback. Luffy. Put your back into it. Your hockey's still not strong enough. Garp yelled, swinging another fist at him. Luffy took the brunt of the blow with his upraised arm, but Garp still managed to fling him away, smashing him into the wall at the other end of the training field, throwing up a cloud of dust. Vice Admiral Garp. A Marine gulped. What? Garp glared back at the Marine, causing him to shrink back. Maybe. You should go a little easier on trainee Luffy. He only awoke in his hockey yesterday, after all. The Marine swallowed nervously. Nonsense. There's no easier in the path to becoming stronger. Garp glanced back at the wall, the dust clearing to reveal a battered Luffy pushing himself up. Luffy. You don't want anyone else to end up like Sabo, do you? Luffy's eyes widened at the mention of that name. He gritted his teeth as he remembered watching the boat explode in front of him before being engulfed in a wall of flames. He never felt so powerless in his life before. His brothers had always protected him, but no one protected his brothers in return. He had sworn to himself then that he will definitely grow stronger no matter the cost and protect everything he held dear. He would definitely become a Marine. Grandpa! Luffy clenched his fists, blood dripping down his hand as his nails cut into his skin. Garp grinned at him, seeing the raging fire in his eyes. Luffy charged towards his grandpa, his fists raised and infused with haki. Make me stronger. Master Chief Petty Officer Tashigi. Nami slammed open the door without warning, shocking everyone inside the ship's war room. What? What is it, Commander Nami? Tashigi saluted. We need to organize a defense force against a group of pirates that's heading towards us right now. Nami yelled, pointing out the door. Tashigi gasped, Pirates? They're coming here? Nami nodded, it's the same group that we saw the other day. Understood. We shall not allow them to escape a second time. Men! To arms! Tashigi ordered. Aye. The Marines immediately leapt to their feet. Tashigi grabbed her swords, belting them on. Where is Captain Smoker? He's currently taking Luffy to the doctor. I doubt he'll make it back in time. Usopp appeared at the doorway. Tashigi bit her thumb. It can't be helped then, we're on our own. Will you two be taking over command? Both of them shook their heads frantically. Nami waved her hands quickly. Neither of us are trained in leadership at all. You can direct your men as you see fit. Understood. Men! Raise the anchor. We'll meet those pirates out at sea. Don't let those pirates dock on the island. The Marines immediately scurried out to obey. As the three Marine officers stepped out onto the deck, Nami glanced towards the mountains that towered over the island. I hope those three managed to get Luffy to safety. Nami frowned. Don't worry, those three can take on anything that threatens them. Luffy will be fine. Usopp placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Meanwhile, said three men stood face to face with a bunch of bear-sized rabbits. So are these the rabbits that Dalton guy was talking about? Zoro grunted, unsheathing his swords. Leave them to us, Captain Smoker, you should go on ahead. Sanji tapped his foot on the snow. Smoker frowned, looking around him. I would like to. But it seems they have us surrounded. All three men stood with their backs to each other while the rabbits, known as Lapins, stared down at them with angry eyes. Should we fight them? Zoro gripped his swords. Sanji glanced at the panting Luffy. No, Luffy's condition might worsen from the fight. He's already in critical condition right now. TCH. Why do they have to appear right now of all times? Smoker furrowed his brows. So? You got a plan? Zoro held his swords defensively in front of him. We'll blow open a path towards the mountain, then make a run for it. Sanji grunted, eyeing the Lapins that barred the path towards the mountain. Smoker nodded in affirmative, making sure Luffy was securely tied to his back, preparing to propel himself with his smoke. Now! Sanji yelled, leaping towards one of the Lapins and kicked it away. Smoker changed the bottom half of his body into smoke while holding onto Luffy tightly, propelling himself through the opening Sanji created. A Lapin on the other side roared and tried to strike Smoker before he could get through. Get your paws off him! Zoro slashed his sword, deflecting the Lapin's strike away as Smoker landed in the snow outside of the Lapin encirclement. The three men started sprinting away, running as fast as they could as the Lapins chased after them. One of it caught up to them, lashing out towards Sanji. These things are fast. Sanji furrowed his brows as he leapt over the slash. We can't outrun them. They're too fast. Zoro yelled, ducking under a tree. A Lapin threw at them. Sanji and Zoro landed beside each other, facing the Lapins. Go! We'll hold them off. Sanji yelled towards Smoker. Make sure you get him there safely. Zoro added. Smoker grunted in affirmative, sprinting towards the mountain with Luffy on his back. Sanji lit a cigarette while Zoro tied his bandana on his head. Never thought I'd have to fight alongside you again, you brute, Sanji grinned. Heh, same to you, Arrowcook. Zoro bit down on his sword. Let's make this fast, he might encounter more Lappins on the way. Zoro smirked, you take the right half, and I'll take the left side half. Both men faced the Lappins as they roared, charging towards them. Party table kick course. Tatsumaki. The swordsman and cook lunged towards the Lappins, striking down those that dared to attack them while making sure none of them goes after Smoker. These guys are strong. Sanji frowned, kicking a Lappin across the head, only to watch it stand up to attack him again. Ha, it's just you who's not strong enough, Zoro grunted, although he was forced on the defensive with so many Lappins jumping towards him at once. Shut it, shitty swordsman, I don't see you having a good time either. Sanji ducked under a swipe from a Lappin before kicking it away. Hee, don't you know? I'm trying to put myself in more danger to unlock that hockey thing, Zoro grinned, slashing at a Lappin. Sanji deflected a punch away with his kick before kicking upwards with his other leg at the Lappin's chin. You actually think that's going to work? Zoro grunted with effort as he crossed his swords to block a swipe from another Lappin before slashing with the sword in his mouth at said Lappin. It worked for our Commodore, so why not me? Because he's a monster. Sanji yelled incredulously, spinning on the shoulder of a Lappin as a pivot while kicking at the Lappins surrounding it. Then I'll just have to turn into a monster too. Zoro grinned, slashing out his swords at the two Lappins that stood before him. You crazy bastard, Sanji couldn't help but let a grin creep onto his face, leaping to kick at the neck of another Lappin. Let's finish this up and join Smoker, Zoro grunted, staring down the last few Lappins. It seemed they were hesitating on attacking the two Marines after witnessing their strength, but they didn't want to let their fallen brethren go unavenged either. Both Marines noticed the Lappins' hesitation. We didn't kill them, if that's what you're worried about, Sanji jerked his chin at the fallen Lappins before turning to Zoro worriedly. You didn't. Did you? Nah. They'll live. Probably. Zoro muttered the last part to himself. If you let us go, you can bring your friends back. I'm sure we all know how this is going to end, aren't we? Sanji grinned. The remaining Lappins looked at each other before finally dropping their bulking shoulders, working on pulling their brethren out from the snow. Let's go, that smoke guy's defenseless without us. Sanji turned and ran down the path just as Zoro sheathed his swords. He ran silently for a while, following the footprints Smoker had left behind for them to follow. He shouldn't be that far ahead, we just need to follow his footprints. As Sanji continued to run, he finally noticed it was oddly silent behind him. He turned his head and instead of seeing the green-haired swordsman, there was just endless piles of snow. That stupid brute. I'll swear. That stupid cook got lost, didn't he? Zoro frowned, looking around and seeing nothing but trees and snow. I guess I should probably head that way. Zoro sprinted towards the opposite direction of the mountain. Smoker didn't turn even as the sounds of battle halted abruptly behind him, fully concentrating on the path ahead of him. This stupid doctor. Why the hell does she have to stay in such a ridiculous place? Smoker glared up at the mountain that still seemed so far away. He glanced over his shoulder to check on the still unconscious Luffy. His breathing was strained and rugged, the fact that his face seemed to be an odd shade of blue didn't help either. Smoker turned back and hastened his speed. He was just glad he wasn't the one being chewed out for Luffy's current condition. For once, he was grateful he wasn't ranked really high up in the Marines. He patted his jacket lightly, breathing an odd sigh of relief that he didn't bring his den mushi with him. He made a silent prayer towards the one who had to answer it in his stead on the ship. With luck, the higher-ups wouldn't redirect any angry callers to him. Meanwhile, on said Marine ship, all the Marines had their weapons loaded and ready to bombard the pirates while Dalton had organized a resistance force holding a defensive line near the river mouth. The Marines had maneuvered the ship to block the river mouth, aiming its side towards the sea. Toshiji herself stood at the prow of the battleship, scanning the horizon for any signs of the pirates while Usopp and Nami stood alongside the rest of the Marines on the deck. They had decided to leave Vivi and Karoo in the village in case Smoker's group came back and needed directions. A den den mushi rang nearby, breaking the tension that hung in the air. Tashigi glanced back just as a marine ran up to her with the den den mushi, saluting with it in his hands. Master Chief Petty Officer Tashigi. It's Captain Smokers. Tashigi pursed her lips as she took the den den mushi from the marine and placed the receiver in her ear. Hello? I don't suppose you're Captain Smoker? A sharp voice questioned on the other end. This is Master Chief Petty Officer Tashigi. Captain Smoker is not available at the moment. May I ask who you are? Not available? What could he possibly be busy with then? Displeasure was evident in his voice. Tashigi frowned. I will need you to state your identity before I can disclose that information. Dracula Mihawk, now will you tell me where your captain is, Miss Tashigi? Tashigi visibly stiffened at the name, stifling a gasp. I'm sorry for my rudeness. Enough, just let me talk to Captain Smoker, Mihawk grunted. He's not currently here, sir. TCH. Then do you at least know what's going on with Luffy? Commodore Luffy? He's currently down with some kind of sickness and Captain Smoker has taken him to a doctor. I see, he'll be fine, won't he? Mihawk's words seemed to cut the air itself. Tashigi could feel the tension tighten around her neck. Yes, sir. I'll hold you to your words, Miss Tashigi. Mihawk hung up without waiting for a reply. Who was that? Nami asked, stepping beside Tashigi. The Shichibukai. Dracula Mihawk. Tashigi stuttered, handing the den den mushi back to the marine. Mihawk? Usopp gasped. Tashigi nodded slowly. What's Commodore Luffy's relationship with him? Nami scratched her chin. I'm not really sure myself. But they seem to be on really good terms. Good enough to be really casual with each other, if I might add. Usopp snorted. Why did he call you? Nami raised an eyebrow. Tashigi shuddered. He asked about Luffy's condition. He didn't sound happy though. The other two shuddered as well, clearly remembering Mihawk's display of his powers. On another note, the pirates are really taking their time getting here. Tashigi frowned. Nami turned towards the horizon, empty of any ships. Well, we did spot them near the island. If that Wapol had any intentions of returning, he would. While the Marines stared out at the horizon, a large shadow passed underneath their ship. Meanwhile, on an island far away, Dracula Mihawk glared at the smoldering Vivre card with disdain, twirling it in between his fingers. He sat on his plush couch inside his empty castle, with nothing to accompany him but his own thoughts. A wineglass lay shattered on the ground, spilling the dark red liquid all over the floor, but Mihawk made no attempt to clean it. Down with a sickness. Mihawk narrowed his eyes, refusing to believe that monster by the name of Luffy could actually fall sick in the first place. He opened his hand facing upwards to let the Vivre card lie straight down on his palm, watching it slide across his hand on its own. He clenched his fist and frowned, glancing towards the direction where the Vivre card had slid towards. If you die now, Luffy, I'll be really disappointed in you. Flashback. Mihawk stood in the training field, watching the clouds float by across the sky. The door behind him slid open and Garp stepped out silently with a group of Marines following closely behind. You better have a good reason for me to be here, Garp the Fist. Mihawk half turned his head to stare at Garp with an eye. Garp grinned wickedly. Of course. I have a request for you today. Mihawk raised an eyebrow. A request? That's rare coming from you. Garp stepped aside to reveal Luffy behind him, bandages wrapped around his head, arms and legs. I believe you two are already acquainted? Garp patted his grandson on his shoulder. Hockey. Luffy grinned. Luffy, Mihawk nodded towards the boy before glancing back to Garp. What do you want? Spar with him, Garp said simply, shocking everyone around who heard it. Mihawk looked at Luffy with a critical eye. No offense, Garp, but you might want to have your head checked. The boy shouldn't even be walking around with those injuries right now, let alone spar with me. Luffy stepped towards Mihawk before Garp could respond. "Hawkie, I personally request to spar with you." Mihawk looked down at the boy. Luffy's eyes held no hesitation, nor was there any hint of his suffering. "So be it, but know that I will not hold back." Mihawk drew the sword on his back, descending the stairs onto the field. "Shi. I won't have it any other way." Luffy followed Mihawk gingerly. Without so much as a signal, Mihawk lunged towards Luffy while he descended the stairs, swinging the back of his blade towards Luffy's side. He frowned when he realized Luffy had encased his whole body in armament haki, his arm already up to block his blade. "I thought you said you won't hold back?" Luffy frowned, glancing down at Mihawk's sword. "Wahahaha. You'd do well not to look down on him, Hawkeyes. If you must know, he only awakened his haki about a week ago." Garp laughed, watching from the side. Mihawk glanced back at Luffy. Such level of mastery in such a short time. "I have no doubt your grandfather made you survive through hell for this." "Shishishi, I guess so." Luffy laughed lightly, lowering his arms as Mihawk drew back his sword, stepping onto the field. Cuckoo, I apologize for my earlier disrespect, Luffy." Mihawk turned his blade around, pointing the edge of the blade outwards instead of inwards like before. "I shall take you on with all my might." Gladly, Luffy lowered himself into his stance. The two clashed again, both sides not holding back this time. Smoker glanced up at the intimidating mountain, having finally reached its base. "So what now?" Sanji glanced up at the mountain as well, catching up to the Marine captain a few moments ago. "Are we just going to ignore Calm Man? Zoro?" Smoker raised an eyebrow. Sanji rolled his eyes. "He'll be fine, just let him be." "More importantly, what do we do now?" "I can change my lower body into smoke and propel myself up the mountain." Smoker grunted, tightening the ropes that bound Luffy. "All the way?" Sanji glanced at Smoker incredulously. Smoker stared up at the mountain again, narrowing his eyes. "I might need to make a few stops on the way up. But I should be able to reach the top." "What about me?" Sanji cried. Smoker thought for a while, scratching his chin. "If I need to carry you as well, I might have some trouble." "So what should I do? Head back to the village?" Sanji frowned, looking back at the forest they just made it through. Here, Smoker handed the end of the rope. Sanji narrowed his eyes at the rope. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Tie it around your waist, then hold on tight and don't let go." Smoker began stretching his legs. Sanji raised an eyebrow but did as he was told, securing the rope tightly around his waist. That was also when he noticed the other end of the rope was secured to Smoker's waist as well. "What are you planning?" Sanji frowned. "Hold on tight." Smoker grunted, crouching down before changing his lower body into smoke, spreading the smoke around himself. "Wait. You're not going to, are you?" Sanji gripped the rope tightly. Smoker didn't respond as the smoke suddenly converged back underneath his legs, exploding upwards and blasting Smoker and Sanji towards the sky. "Arg! You bastard!" Sanji screamed, gripping onto the rope for dear life. Smoker grunted from the effort of lifting two men into the sky. He glanced up at the mountain, frowning when he felt himself slowing down even before reaching a tenth of the way up. He took out his jit and stabbed it into the mountain, hanging onto it as Sanji dangled a few feet below him, still screaming. He spread out his smoke again before pulling out his jit and exploded himself upwards once more, ignoring the screams of Sanji below him. "I swear I'm gonna kill you for this," Sanji yelled, his face an unhealthy shade of blue. "Suck it up, you wuss," Smoker grunted, stabbing his jit into the mountain again, panting from the effort. "Is there no other way to do this? Something that doesn't involve my life hanging by a rope?" Sanji shouted angrily. Smoker frowned at him. "You got a better idea, genius?" Sanji glanced down and gulped, gripping the rope tighter. "Air." "No?" "Then shut up, you damn wuss." Smoker exploded himself up again, pulling a crying Sanji up behind him. The Marines on the ship turned around when they heard the water explode up behind them, gasping when Wapple's ship appeared from underwater. "Ah! I forgot their ship could submerge." Usopp clutched his head. Ready broadside cannons! Toshiji shouted as the Marines scrambled to obey. They're trying to land and make a run for it, Nami shouted. Gunshots already rang out across the shoreline, the villagers trying their best to keep Wapol from landing with little success. Fire starboard cannons! Toshiji yelled. The cannons on the right side of the ship fired at once, raining down a hail of cannonballs on Wapol's ship, exploding with splinters in every direction. Commander Nami! Commander Usopp! Please go ashore to aid the villagers, Toshiji shouted while directing the other Marines to ready a second bombardment. Leave it to us. Usopp thumped his chest, running towards one of the landing boats that was already being prepared for them. All cannons reloaded. A Marine officer shouted. Fire! The second wave of cannonballs smashed through Wapol's ship, the main mast cracking and tilting to one side. The pirate crew was doing their best to keep it afloat while trying to land on the island, ducking under the villagers' gunshots at the same time. As the pirate ship finally landed, a third hail of cannonballs smashed through it, a cannonball exploding on the mast and toppling it. The soldiers on board the ship scrambled onto land frantically amidst the storm of bullets while some decided to jump ship into the icy cold waters below instead. Nami and Usopp sat on the boat that were rowed by a few Marines towards the shore, running towards the villagers the instant the boat touched ground. The battleship fired again, this time a cannonball exploded in the ship's powder stores, setting it ablaze in a shower of sparks. Soldiers were thrown off the ship by the explosion, most of them landing in the water while the rest found themselves on land with the villagers pointing their guns at them. Surrender! Drop your weapons! Usopp shouted, finally reaching the pirates. The soldiers held their rifles uneasily, staring fearfully at the lines of rifles aimed towards them. Drop it! Dalton shouted, standing in front of the villagers, changing into his bison form intimidatingly. The soldiers immediately dropped their guns and raised their hands in surrender. Looks like you still have room for improvement, Nami nudged Usopp. Dalton hefted his spade-shaped blade, advancing towards the soldiers and frowning when he realized Wapol was not among them. Where is Wapol? He demanded, the soldiers cowering in fear when he turned towards them. We landed on the other side, when we saw the Marine ship. We're supposed to act as a diversion while he went to the castle. A soldier stuttered fulfully. Damn it! Dalton cursed, stabbing his blade into the snow. He glared towards the mountain with the castle at the top as Nami and Usopp approached. What's wrong? Nami raised an eyebrow at the fuming Dalton. Dalton shrunk himself back to his human form, fuming, Wapol. He's already gone ahead towards the castle and we don't have a way to get up that mountain. How is he going to get up there? Nami raised an eyebrow. He probably knows a way up that we don't. That was his castle after all. Dalton furrowed his brows. What do we do then? Usopp stared at the drum-shaped mountains. Dalton pulled his blade from the snow, sheathing it behind his back. There's nothing we can do unless we find a way up. Well, that doctor could come down from the mountain whenever she wants to, so there's bound to be a secret way up that only she knows about too. Nami crossed her arms. Dalton sighed, if that's true, she must have hidden it really well, we've never found a way up all this time. Where was she last seen before she disappeared back up the mountain again? Nami glanced towards the villagers. If I remember correctly, she always seemed to make her last stop at Jayasta village. A bearded villager scratched his chin. Then we'll just start our search there. Nami grinned. What about them? Dalton jerked a thumb at the soldiers just as the Marine ship landed on the shore. Leave these pirates to us, you guys go on ahead. Toshiji shouted from the ship, Marines already pouring out to apprehend the soldiers. Dalton nodded a thanks to her, turning back to the villagers, let's search around Jayasta, perhaps there's a way up from there. The villagers yelled in triumph as they lead the way to Jayasta village, confident they could end the fear of Wapol's tyranny for good. Smoker stabbed his jit into the ground, collapsing in the snow, exhausted. A blue-faced Sanji laid down in the snow beside him, gasping as he tried to forget his frightful journey up the mountain. You crazy bastard! Sanji panted, throwing a fistful of snow at Smoker. Shut up, I got us up here, didn't I? Smoker grunted, looking up at the castle that stood in front of him. If you have any complaints, say it to the damn doctor who chose to stay up here. Sanji pushed himself back on his feet, frowning at Smoker who still knelt on the ground. So? You coming or not? Smoker got up on a knee unsteadily. Shut it. It wasn't exactly a breeze for me to carry the two of you up here, you know? Eh? How did you two get here? A green-haired swordsman entered their vision casually. The two of them stared at Zoro for a while, letting the silence stretch for a few seconds. We should be asking you that. Both Smoker and Sanji yelled at him. Zoro flinched back at their sudden outburst. Whoa, whoa. I just walked here, that's all. You walked here? Sanji grasped Zoro's collar. Zoro frowned and smacked his hand away. Of course. After you left me behind, I had no choice but to keep walking around until I found you guys. Smoker's jaw dropped at his declaration while Sanji face-palmed. There's a limit to how lost you can get, you know? Sanji wrung his hands in the air. I wasn't lost. Zoro protested, huffing indignantly. Enough. I don't care how he got here, Luffy's our priority right now. Smoker finally pushed himself on his feet. The two commanders ceased their argument immediately, accompanying Smoker as they approached the castle gates. Don't suppose we knock? Sanji glanced at the huge wooden double doors leading inside the castle. Don't bother, Zoro pushed against the door, hefting it open for the other two to enter. The three walked down the deserted corridors of the castle, their footsteps echoing on the stone floor. What are you three doing here? A woman stepped out behind them, prompting all three of them to spin around and lower into their battle stance. Zoro had his swords out and pointed towards the woman while Sanji stood protectively in front of Smoker, leg raised. The woman looked old enough to be any of the present men's grandmother with pure white hair and deep wrinkles on her face. She wore a purple blazer over a short flower print shirt that bared her navel to display her navel ring. A pair of hipster sunglasses rested on the bridge of her nose while an equally hipster pair of pants stretched all the way down to her ankles. I don't suppose you gents are here to know about the secret to my youth? The woman grinned, crossing her arms smugly. Who are you? Zoro grunted, ignoring her question but not lowering his swords. The woman huffed, I should be the one to ask you that. This is my house you're barging into. So you're the doctor? Sanji frowned, crossing his fingers and hoping the answer to be a no. The woman seemed to brighten at the question. Oh? So you're patients? Why didn't you say so sooner? I'm Dr. Kureha, at your service. Kureha did an exaggerated bow towards the three Marines. Now what do the Marines want with me? Smoker and Sanji relaxed, but Zoro didn't seem convinced yet. How do we know you're the real doctor? Not a trusting one, eh? Kureha raised an eyebrow. Zoro said nothing as he gripped his swords tighter, watching the woman carefully. Kureha shrugged, it doesn't matter whether you trust me or not, you're free to roam around here until you find another doctor, although... She pointed towards the panting Luffy, if you want your friend there to live, you'd better let a doctor see him right now. Commander Zoro, stand down, Smoker grunted, stepping up towards Kureha. Zoro frowned as he lowered his swords, still refusing to sheath them. Our friend is sick, our own doctor couldn't even get a diagnosis on what's wrong with him. Smoker glanced towards Luffy, who was still unconscious. Kureha poked a finger at his forehead. 43 degrees, this is pretty serious. Follow me to the infirmary. Kureha walked past the men without a second glance back, humming a tune as she walked down the corridor. The three Marines glanced at each other before finally running to catch up with the doctor. Kureha led them out into the castle's main hall that was entirely covered in snow, drawing shivers from the men. Why is the whole place covered in snow? Sanji frowned, following the doctor up the stairs. You'd think the hag would actually do some proper cleaning or something. Zoro shivered. A flash of metal flew towards Zoro, who jerked his head away at the last second, avoiding the flying knife that was tossed at him. What the hell was that for? Zoro yelled at Kureha. The doctor snorted, seemingly disappointed Zoro had dodged the knife. Don't call me a hag, I'm only 139 years old. Holy crap, she's old. The three men thought at the same time. Kureha held open a door at the second floor of the castle, gesturing the three men inside the infirmary. Smoker untied Luffy and lowered him into the only bed in the room, turning back to regard the self-professed doctor. Kureha ignored them while she peeked her head into one of the side rooms. Chopper. We got a patient. She turned back to the three men, frowning at them as though she was insulted by their presence. What are you still doing here? Get out. Leave this to the professionals. How are we sure you won't hurt him? Zoro crossed his arms. A true doctor never harms their patient, and I am a doctor, Kureha frowned. Smoker raised an arm to stop Zoro before he could protest again. We'd like to make sure of it with our own eyes, if you don't mind. Kureha sighed before pointing to the far corner of the room. Stay there and don't make a sound. If you disturb me, I'll throw you all out. The three men trudged to the corner indicated just as a small reindeer walked out from the side room. Is that a reindeer walking on two legs? Sanji raised an eyebrow. Looks like a tanuki to me. Zoro raised an eyebrow. It's a reindeer that ate a devil fruit, isn't it? Smoker glanced at Kureha. The reindeer frowned towards the three men, while Kureha just chuckled. His name is Chopper. He ate the Hito fruit and became half human and half reindeer. Dr. Kureha, are they all patients? Chopper pointed towards the men. It talks? Sanji gasped. I told you all to shut up, didn't I? Kureha yelled, throwing a few knives at them that stuck into the wall behind them. What a scary doctor. Smoker frowned. Kureha jerked her thumb towards Luffy. That's the patient, Chopper, diagnose him. The reindeer climbed onto the bed, proceeding to check on Luffy with the precision of a professional doctor. The three men watched silently as Kureha watched over the small doctor, judging his work. So what's wrong with him? Kureha said after a while of tense silence. He's been bitten by a Kestia. Chopper pointed towards the bite mark on Luffy. Kureha grinned proudly. Correct, now what should be the proper procedure? Cleaning of the wound, injection of the antivenom, then antibiotics. Chopper rattled off. Very good, now hop to it. Kureha nodded as the reindeer scurried off to get the necessary equipment. You're letting the reindeer tend to him? Zoro stared wide-eyed at the doctor. Kureha huffed indignantly. He's a qualified doctor, I trained him myself after all. A reindeer doctor. And I thought I've already seen everything. Smoker scratched his chin. Chopper returned carrying a basket full of medical equipment to the bed, hopping back up on the bed. Just before Chopper could get to work, an explosion sounded from outside the castle, stunning everyone in the room. What's going on? Sanji looked towards Kureha. She held her hands up. Don't look at me, I wasn't cooking anything. TCH, we'll go check it out. Smoker gripped his jit and made a beeline towards the door. What about Luffy? Zoro frowned, not willing to leave his Commodore alone with the two strange people. He'll be fine, there's nothing we can do here anyway. Smoker pulled Zoro out the door after Sanji before he could protest again, slamming the door shut behind him. Zoro narrowed his eyes at the wooden door before sprinting down the stairs after the other two Marines, making their way back to the entrance of the castle. Exiting the castle, they're met with an angry Wapol and two strange-looking men accompanying him. One was the man wearing the jester outfit while the other had a look that resembled a boxer that was obsessed with afros. He had an afro hair and a beard that had 3 small afros along the corners of his chin. He wore a long orange shirt covered by an orange cloak that had afros hanging at each hand. 2 boxing gloves that resembled afros also covered his hand, hiding all of his fingers except for his thumbs. The smoldering remains of a flag could be seen on the ground, apparently blown from the top of the castle. You're the Marines from before. What are you doing in my castle? Wapol pointed an accusing finger at the 3 men. What do you mean your castle, pirate? Smoker frowned, popping 2 cigars in his mouth. Be careful of your words, Marine. You are speaking to Wapol, king of Drum Kingdom. The jester man shook his fist at Smoker. King? I could have sworn that you guys were pirates. You attacked us at sea too. Sanji narrowed his eyes, similarly popping a cigarette in his mouth. The boxer crossed his arms. That was when our kingdom was invaded. We had to resort to piracy when we escaped from this country. Zoro smirked. So you guys chose your lives over your country, such cowards. Silence. I have returned to this country, and while I'm here, I am the king. Wapol blared at Zoro. Smoker pointed his jit towards Wapol. You are no king here. The moment you chose to wave the flag of a pirate, you have chosen the life of piracy and forsaken your title as king. No matter the reason for your actions, we Marines will no longer recognize you as a legitimate king any longer. How dare you? Chess. Koromaramo. Get rid of these Marines. Wapol pointed a finger at the three men. The jester drew his bow and shot 3 arrows towards the Marines, each arrow heading for a different Marine. Sanji leaned back and kicked the arrow aside while Zoro unsheathed his swords and sliced the arrow cleanly in half. Smoker, on the other hand, just dissipated his body into smoke and let the arrow pass through him. He's a devil fruit user. The jester named Chess gasped. A Logia class 2. The boxer, Koromaramo, panicked. Smoker hefted his jit on his shoulder. Just give up, pirates, you guys don't stand a chance. Ha, you might be Logia class, but my Baku Baku fruit won't lose to yours either. Wapol smirked, rubbing his hands together. Smoker raised an eyebrow. Baku Baku fruit? Ma ha 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 ha. I can munch on anything, even you. As long as I can get you in my mouth, Logia or not, I can munch you to death. Wapol laughed. The 3 Marines stared at Wapol incredulously. You have no idea how stupid that sounds. Zoro sighed. Is that even possible? Sanji crossed his arms. Smoker frowned. As stupid as that might sound, no one can be too sure when it comes to devil fruits. Even I'm not sure what will happen if he does get his mouth on me. The 3 pirates lowered into their fighting stances again, prompting the 3 Marines to do the same. Well, there's 3 of them, Zoro nodded towards them. And there's 3 of us, Sanji finished. 1 for 1 then, I'll take Wapol. Smoker bit down on his cigar, swinging his jit in an arc. The bow guy, Zoro secured his bandana on his head. The Afro dude then, Sanji puffed on his cigarette. The 3 Marines charged at their targets. The sounds of battle reverberated throughout the castle. What's going on outside? Chopper frowned, wiping the sweat off Luffy's brow. Don't get distracted, Chopper. Remember he's your patient, Kureha admonished. Despite saying that, she looked towards the door leading out to the main hall, pursing her lips as another explosion rocked the castle. Stay with him, Chopper, I'll go out and check. Kureha walked out the room without waiting for a reply, closing the door behind her. Chopper watched her leave before turning his attention back to Luffy, checking his temperature again. He's recovering quite fast. This is unusual. Even with Dr. Kureha's prescription, he should take a knot. Her 3 days to fully recover. Chopper frowned at the thermometer. In just a few minutes, Luffy's fever had already gone down to normal, surprising both Chopper and Kureha. The bite wound had healed as well, not even leaving a scar, as though he had never been bitten from the start. Unknown to them, after the hellish training Luffy had survived in the Marines, his body had adapted to heal ridiculously fast from external injuries to the point of being superhuman. Especially with Garp pushing the boy to his limits and further beyond, Luffy had little other choice. The only thing he lacked now was a strong resistance to poison. Now if this boy adapted to that, he could then truly be regarded as a real monster. Chopper left the room to change the pail of water, ignoring the sounds of battle outside. As he returned to the bed, Luffy sat up without warning, scaring the reindeer into dropping the pail and spilling its contents all over the floor. As Chopper scrambled away from Luffy, he slipped on the water and fell on his face, crying out in agony. He glanced over his shoulders to see Luffy staring at him with curiosity before frantically running into the side room, trying to hide behind the doorframe. You know you're hiding at the wrong side, right? Luffy pointed out at the reindeer who had his whole body exposed and only hiding a part of his head behind the doorframe. Chopper gasped in shock before moving to hide correctly. Where am I? Luffy looked around the room for the first time. Hey! Hey! Are you feeling better? Chopper asked while hiding behind the doorframe. Luffy snapped his head at the reindeer. You can talk? Chopper hesitated before nodding his head. He didn't mind the presence of the other 3 humans because Dr. Kureha was there with him. Now he felt apprehensive being alone with the Marine. That's so cool. Luffy had sparkles in his eyes. Chopper was stunned for a while, not expecting that specific reaction. Hey, so what's your name? Luffy sat at the edge of the bed, the sparkles not leaving his eyes. Tony Chopper, the reindeer replied hesitatingly. Shishishi, nice to meet you. I'm Commodore Monkey D. Luffy of the Straw Hat Marines. Luffy grinned. You're a Marine? Chopper ducked his head a little more behind the doorframe. Yeah. I catch bad guys and bring them to justice. Luffy grinned. Chopper frowned, like pirates? Luffy raised an eyebrow. Not all pirates are bad. I only catch bad guys. Are you a pirate? Chopper shook his head quickly. Oh? But you had plans to be one? Chopper shook his head again. I met a pirate before. Was he nice? Luffy propped his head up on his hands. He took care of me when no one else wanted to. Chopper gripped the door frame tightly. So he's a good guy then? Luffy laughed. Chopper came out from his hiding spot. You're not scared of me? Of course not, why should I? Luffy tilted his head, genuinely confused. Because I'm a reindeer that walks on 2 legs. And talks. Chopper twiddled his fingers. So? Luffy raised an eyebrow. Don't you get it? I'm a monster. Chopper frowned. Shishishi, you don't look like a monster to me. Luffy grinned. Chopper felt a smile creep across his face, before finally noticing that Luffy was sitting up on the bed. Ah! Wait! You shouldn't be sitting up. You're still not fully recovered yet. Chopper rushed towards Luffy, trying to get him to lie down again. I feel fine now. Luffy protested, but Chopper managed to push him back down on the bed. No! You still need to rest. The bacteria is still in your body. How do you know? Luffy frowned. I'm a doctor. Of course I would know. Luffy widened his eyes. So you're a doctor too? That's even more awesome. Chopper couldn't help but smile brightly at that. Shoo. Shut up, you bastard. I won't be happy even if you compliment me like that. Shishishi. You're so funny. Hey, do you want to become a Marine? Luffy chuckled. Of? A Marine? Me? Chopper gasped. Yeah. It'll be fun. Luffy grinned at him, sitting up on the bed again. This time Chopper made no move to stop him. Chopper frowned, drooping his head, but I'm not human. Luffy waved his hand. Oh, we're not that picky. As long as you uphold justice, you're welcome to join my crew. Justice? Chopper widened his eyes. Yeah. There are things you want to protect, right? Luffy propped up his head with his hands. Chopper thought about his first mentor, Dr. Hilialik, and how he had protected him from the other humans who thought of him as a monster. Then of Dalton, who had defended him from Wapol when Hilialik gave his life trying to protect the country. He glanced down at his hands. He couldn't even protect Hilialik. What gave him the right to protect anything else? Chopper felt a hand on his shoulder just as the first tears began to fall. He looked up to see Luffy's serious eyes, the cheerfulness from before gone. So you've lost things? Luffy said simply. Chopper understood that it wasn't a question, but still nodded his head regardless. I've lost things too, things that I had wanted to protect but couldn't because I wasn't strong enough. Luffy looked down at his other hand. Chopper watched silently as Luffy clenched his other hand tightly. Because I wasn't strong enough. I lost things that I treasured. Luffy glanced up at Chopper again, seeing the reindeer stare back at him with concern. Luffy let a grin creep into his face. That's why I chose to join the Marines. I got stronger to protect what I treasured while helping others who weren't strong enough to protect theirs too. Wow. Chopper stared at the Marine with admiration. Do you think I can become a Marine too? Of course you can. I invited you, didn't I? Luffy grinned. He propped his head up with his hands. You have a dream, don't you? Chopper brightened. Yeah. I want to be the best doctor in the world and find a cure for all kinds of diseases. That's so cool. Luffy exclaimed with sparkles in his eyes. Chopper started dancing happily, a bright smile plastered on his face. Praising me won't make me happy, you know? You bastard. That was precisely the time another explosion rocked the castle. What the? What's going on? Luffy frowned. Ah. I almost forgot. There's people fighting outside. You stay here. I'm going out to check. Chopper ran outside the room, leaving Luffy alone. The three Marines charged at the pirates, spreading themselves out towards their individual targets. Chess pulled back his bow and shot a hail of arrows towards Zoro. Zoro tightened his grip on his swords and slashed out at the arrows, cutting them down before they could reach him, not slowing down his charge towards Chess. Koromarimo had thrown a couple of afro-shaped projectiles at Sanji, who had tried to kick them away, only to find out those projectiles stuck to him like glue. Cursing at his own bad luck, he didn't have time to pry the balls off as he did his best to dodge another hail of afros coming towards him. Smoker, on the other hand, propelled himself in a cloud of smoke towards Wapol, pulling ahead of the other two Marines with his jit held at his side. Wapol himself had transformed his hands into cannons, pointing them at Smoker while laughing that his power allows him to assimilate anything he eats. Smoker only rolled his eyes at the revelation as he let the cannonballs that Wapol fired pass through him, exploding harmlessly behind him. Just as Smoker was about to reach him, Wapol opened his mouth wide, attempting to swallow Smoker. You think I'd actually fall for that? Smoker frowned. He swung his jit in an arc and smashed it against the side of Wapol's head, sending him sprawling onto the snow. Your Majesty! Both Chess and Koromarimo cried out. You sure you should be looking somewhere else? Zoro smirked, leaping towards Chess. Chess lifted his bow and barely deflected the blow away, grunting from the effort. You dirty Marine! Chess frowned, pulling back his bow and releasing another hail of arrows. Zoro leapt back from him to avoid the arrows before lunging towards Chess again, the latter leaping aside to avoid the stab. Zoro had anticipated the move, however, stabbing his sword in the ground as a pivot before spinning himself to kick at Chess, sending him crashing beside Wapol. Chess! Koromarimo cried, attempting to go to his aid. Didn't you hear him? You should be focusing on me. Sanji kicked towards Koromarimo's head. Koromarimo cursed as he lifted his arm to block the kick, stumbling back from Sanji. Sanji spun on a foot and kicked towards him again, hitting him straight in the chest and sending him flying towards Wapol. You guys aren't much after all, Zoro smirked. Don't you dare underestimate us. Wapol yelled, pushing himself up from the snow. Your Majesty! Let's show them our real power. Koromarimo gritted his teeth. Indeed. Let us crush these infidels. Chess furrowed his brows at the Marines. Real power? Sanji raised an eyebrow. Zoro swung his sword at them. Bring it, we'll still crush you all the same. Wapol smirked wickedly. Now bear witness, the power of my Baku Baku fruit. He then proceeded to swallow both Chess and Koromarimo in a single gulp. He's eating his own men? Zoro raised an eyebrow. Maybe he's just hungry, Sanji suggested, puffing on his cigarette. Be alert, anything can happen when you're fighting devil fruit users, Smoker frowned at Wapol. Behold! The strongest fighter in all of Drum Kingdom. Chessmarimo. Baku Baku Factory. Wapol yelled, spitting out a large figure from his mouth. The figure got up to his feet, revealing a man with 4 arms and a wide body with 2 heads with one on top of the other, the top head being Koromarimo while the bottom head being Chess. Aren't you just standing on his shoulder? Sanji yelled incredulously. What idiots! Zoro sighed. Chessmeramo stood in front of their king. Let us take care of them for you, your majesty. So now that they combined, who's supposed to take care of him? Sanji glanced at Zoro. You're not suggesting on working together again, are you? Zoro raised an eyebrow. Sanji tossed his cigarette aside. What? Not up to it? You shitty swordsman? Shut it, Arocook, I can take him down faster than you, Zoro grinned. Sanji smirked. I'll take that as a challenge, let's do this. The two of them charged towards Chessmeramo. It seems we're being underestimated, Chessmeramo huffed, pulling out two bows from under his cloak. Drawing back the two bows with each pair of hands, he aimed the bow at each marine. Yukidoke no ya Marimo. He released the bow and fired two afro-tipped arrows towards them, the afro suddenly bursting into flames mid-flight. Heh, you think some fire arrows can stop us? Sanji smirked, sliding across the ground to avoid it while Zoro just smacked it away with his sword. Chessmeramo tossed his bows away and drew out 4 axes in each hand, slashing all 4 axes in an X shape. Yukiwariso. The slash sent out an X-shaped shockwave towards the two, cutting along the snow. Get behind me, Arocook. Zoro leapt out in front of Sanji, raising his swords to deflect the shockwave away to smash against the castle. That was when they noticed Kureha standing near the castle gates, watching them. Oh, don't mind me, I'm just watching the show, Kureha waved her hand nonchalantly. You witch! What are you doing in my castle? Wapol demanded, shaking an angry fist at her. Your castle? Kureha raised an eyebrow. Haven't you already abandoned this place to pirates? This is Hilialik's tomb now, you have no place here. You damn witch! Wapol shot a cannonball towards her just as Chopper emerged from the castle gates, pulling her away from the cannonball's path. Chopper? What are you doing here? What about the patient? Kureha demanded, not even caring she narrowly escaped from death. He's well enough now. His fever's already gone too. Chopper lowered his head. Kureha smacked him on the head. Even so, he's still sick. A patient is a doctor's priority. Everything else comes after. What if he's dying when you weren't there? What if who's dying? A voice called out behind her. Both doctors turned their head to see Luffy standing behind them casually. You should be in bed. Both doctors yelled out in unison. Shishishi, I'm fine now, really. Luffy laughed. Kureha kicked towards Luffy. You're only fine when the doctor says so. Luffy raised an arm to block the oncoming blow, the grin not leaving his face. Oh? So you're a doctor too, lady? TCH, Kureha lowered her leg. What's your name, boy? Commodore Monkey D. Luffy, nice to meet you. Luffy grinned. D? Another carrier of the will I see. Kureha turned back towards the fight, losing interest in him. Luffy! You should still be in bed. Chopper tried to shoo him back but Kureha held out a hand to stop him. It's no use, Chopper, people like him are the most stubborn in the world. You might as well just watch over him from here. But? Chopper hesitated. No buts, besides, the Marines in front of you are fighting to protect our country for us now. You do well to watch, Kureha grinned, watching Sanji kick away an axe that was headed towards Zoro. This guy is so annoying. Sanji frowned, kicking towards Chessmeramo's abdomen only to have an axe block the kick. Zoro slashed out his swords to deflect an axe strike while leaping back to avoid another one from his other hand. We'll have to strike together, Sanji grunted, leaping back beside Zoro. Never thought I'd hear it from you, Zoro smirked, swinging his swords behind him. Both men leaped towards Chessmeramo at the same time. Futile! The pirate yelled, bringing all 4 axes down on the 2 men. Both men spun in the air, letting the axes swing past them, their eyes glaring at Chessmeramo. Call your onigiri shoot! Zoro slashed out his swords towards Chessmeramo's chest while Sanji kicked towards his neck, flinging him away to smash into the snow, unmoving. "You damn Marines!" Wapol yelled, fury in his voice. He pointed his cannons towards the two men, but Smoker appeared at his side in a cloud of smoke before he could fire. "Don't look down on us Marines!" Smoker swung his jit at the side of Wapol's face, smacking him into the snow. "Yeah! Go Smokey!" Luffy cheered from the side. Wapol pushed himself up from the snow, cursing under his breath. "Surrender, you damn pirate!" Smoker lowered his jit to point at Wapol. "You wish!" Wapol lunged at Smoker, his mouth wide open to bite him. Smoker dissipated himself into smoke, pulling away from Wapol. Too slow. Wapol munched down on a cloud of smoke, pulling his head back. Smoker furrowed his brows as he realized he couldn't disperse the smoke that was in Wapol's mouth, feeling himself dragged towards Wapol. He shuddered at the thought of what would happen if Wapol chose to swallow that smoke. He stabbed his jit into Wapol's abdomen, forcing the air out of his lungs and spitting out the smoke in his mouth. He reformed himself a few feet in front of Wapol, hefting his jit on his shoulders. Wapol gasped in pain as he clutched at his stomach. "You! That thing's tipped with sea stone." "Sea stone?" Both Zoro and Sanji tilted their heads. "It's a material that gives off the same wavelength as the sea. Any devil fruit user that comes into contact with it would be drained of their strength while disabling their control over their abilities. That's why devil fruit users cannot swim," Smoker explained. "You look fine though?" Zoro pointed out. Smoker grinned, "Only the tip is sea stone, so I'm fine with touching the rest of my jit." "Don't get so full of yourself." Wapol lunged towards Smoker, munching at him. Smoker stuck his jit out and stabbed towards his chin, pushing him back and slamming him down on the floor. Before Smoker could ask him to surrender again, Wapol mustered all of his strength and pushed the jit aside, opening his mouth wide and biting down on Smoker's upper body. "Smokey!" Luffy yelled, leaping towards Wapol with blinding speed. Wapol widened his eyes as he saw the youth literally flying towards him, fists clenched in front of him. "Tekai Sai!" Luffy smashed his hardened body into Wapol's abdomen, forcing Smoker out of his mouth while flinging him off the mountain. "You shouldn't be moving around." Chopper yelled at Luffy while Kureha just laughed beside him. Smoker dusted his clothes as he pushed himself off the ground. "Damn, his mouth stinks." "Thanks Luffy." "Shishishi, don't mention it." Luffy grinned, hands on his hips. "Did you have to fling him off the mountain?" Smoker narrowed his eyes towards the direction Wapol flew off to. Luffy just shrugged, he probably deserved it. "Luffy!" A voice called out from the side. Everyone turned to see Nami running towards him with Usopp, Dalton, and a group of villagers in tow. "Hey, Nami!" Luffy waved enthusiastically. "Nami Swan!" Sanji pirouetted towards Nami, attempting to hug her. Nami just leapt over him, letting him smash his face into the snow as she rushed forward to grasp Luffy by the shoulders. "Are you cured now? Your fever's gone. Are you sure you should be walking around? Where's the doctor?" Nami fretted over him, ignoring Sanji who was now crying in the snow. "I'm fine now Nami, I even got us a doctor." Luffy gestured towards Chopper who was currently running towards them. "Luffy! I already told you. You shouldn't even be moving around yet." Chopper smacked a hoof against Luffy's leg. "Shishishi. Sorry. Luffy scratched his head in embarrassment. Nami crouched down to look at Chopper. "A talking reindeer? Is he our doctor, Luffy?" Chopper hit on the wrong side behind Luffy's legs, frowning at Nami. "Chopper, this is Nami, our navigator." Luffy gestured with a hand. "Hi, Chopper." Nami smiled sweetly in an attempt to get the reindeer to come out of hiding. You're not scared of me?" Chopper tightened his grip of Luffy's leg. "Of course not. You look cute." Nami chuckled. "I'm not cute. I'm a man." Chopper protested, standing in front of her. Yes, you're a really cute reindeer man." "So are you joining our crew?" Chopper frowned at the question, glancing up towards Luffy, who had a big grin on his face. I don't know yet. Chopper hesitated, turning his head to look at the other doctor who stood still at the castle gates. How did you guys get up here anyway? Smoker scratched his chin, stepping beside Luffy. Nami clapped her hands. Oh. We took the lift. There's a lift? The three men that had scaled up the mountain widened their eyes. Nami pointed towards where Usopp was standing with the villagers, helping them to get off a machine that was attached to a rope they had not noticed before. Yep, the villagers found it in a nearby village, so we used it to get up here. Sanji collapsed onto the snow in tears while Zoro scratched his head, commenting on how he remembered walking on a piece of rope some time ago. Smoker just sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Oh. Before I forget, Master Chief Petty Officer Tashigi told me to pass this to you, Captain Smoker. Nami dug through her jacket and handed him a den mushi. She said to contact her as soon as you can. Thanks, Smoker grunted, picking up the receiver to dial a number. In the meantime, Kureha had approached the Marines, a grin plastered on her face. So Wapol is gone for good now, eh? Good riddance. Dr. Kureha. I have decided. Chopper began, but Kureha cut him off with a wave of her hand. Save it for later, Chopper. Kureha nodded towards Smoker. Tashigi, what's your status? Captain Smoker. We have successfully captured all the pirates that had escaped us the last time. We managed to put out the fire on their ship, but it won't be setting sail anytime soon. Good work. Anything else? There's a group of people dressed in overalls that are claiming to be doctors held against their will on Wapol's ship. What should we do with them? That should be the Ishi 20, the doctors Wapol forced to work under him, Kureha cut in. They're clean. Smoker nodded. Let them go, Tashigi. Understood. Ah. Secure all the treasures on the ship too. Nami shouted out. Smoker sighed. You heard her, Tashigi. Aye, Captain. Smoker hung up the call, shoving the den mushi back into his jacket, staring at the villagers. I'll go help them out, they seem like they need it, Smoker grunted. We'll go help too. Sanji and Zoro sprinted towards the villagers, wanting to see the lift for themselves. With that out of the way, I'd like my payment for treating the marine over there. That would be all the money you currently possess on your ship, thank you very much. Kureha crossed her arms. Nami stared at her with wide eyes. In a way. Heh, considering I just saved him from the brink of death, I'd say I'm already being generous. Kureha smirked. That's just extortion. Nami yelled at her. Kureha frowned. Say what you want, little girl, fact remains I did save his life and I'm not getting paid for it. Kureha looked towards the horizon where Wapol was sent flying to. On another note, I needed the armory key Wapol had on him. I don't suppose I'll get my hands on it again. Oh, you mean this key? Nami flashed a key at her. Kureha widened her eyes. That's it. How did you get it? Well, I swiped it off him when he first came to our ship. I thought it was a key to a treasure room or something. Nami smirked, twirling the key on her finger. Give it here, girl, I have more need of it than you do. Kureha stuck a hand out towards her. Nami stuck her tongue out at her, keeping the key from her grasps. If you want it, then you'll have to agree it's a good enough payment for my Commodore's treatment. Kureha let a grin cross her face. Heh, a naughty one, eh? Fine then, I'll take it as the payment. Happy, Pappy? Nami smacked the key in Kureha's palm, shaking on it before releasing her hand. I'm the treasurer of the group after all, I need to take care of the funds. Kureha laughed, and the people call me a witch. You're way more craftier than I am, little girl. Luffy sat in the snow, his exhaustion finally catching up to him. Chopper frowned. You see? I told you, you shouldn't be walking around. Shishishi, I'll be fine. So are you gonna be a marine, Chopper? Luffy grinned. Chopper looked up at Kureha, who raised an eyebrow at him. Didn't you want to be a pirate, Chopper? The reindeer shook his head. I just wanted to be able to help cure people of their diseases. If being a marine helps me to do that, I would become one. Heh, would they accept a monster like you? Kureha crossed her arms. Chopper glanced up at Luffy before turning back to Kureha. I have already chosen to uphold justice and to protect what I can. I won't let anyone else die because of my lack of medical skills any longer. You've grown, Chopper. Kureha turned back towards the castle, waving back at him. I won't say much, just come back and visit sometimes. Chopper let his tears flow as he watched his mentor leave, shouting at a group of villagers to help her move some things out from the castle. Watch the skies when you leave, Chopper. Kureha shouted over her shoulders. You're Princess Vivi, aren't you? Dalton nodded at Vivi. The Marines were preparing to push off from the river mouth after leaving the captured soldiers in the villagers' hands. The treasures from Wapple's ship had also been moved to the Straw Hat ship under Nami's watchful eye, daring any of them to steal from her treasure. How do you know? Vivi gasped. Dalton smiled. I met you when you went to the reverie as a child, when Wapple was especially rude to you. Ah, that's right. You were one of his head of staff. Vivi widened her eyes, remembering the man who had apologized to her on Wapple's behalf when the king had slapped her in anger. So you remained behind to protect the country after Wapple escaped? Dalton nodded. I'm glad to see you're safe, but what are you doing among Marines? Vivi frowned at that. My country's been thrown into civil war because of the actions from a pirate warlord. I had to infiltrate his organization to uncover his identity to the Marines. Dalton widened his eyes. I knew you were strong, but not this strong. For the princess of a kingdom to willingly endanger herself for the sake of her people, it was more than what even he could do. I apologize that I cannot help you with your country, but you have my gratitude for helping save mine. Dalton bowed towards her. Be a better king than Wapple, Dalton. Vivi smiled. A king? Me? I doubt the people of this country would accept a former member of Wapple's staff as their king. Dalton sighed. Vivi placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't know that. I've seen how the people of this country act around you. You're not as hated as you think you are. You think I'll be better than Wapple? Vivi nodded sagely. I believe you will. I look forward to see you at the next reverie. I will, and thank you. Dalton bowed again. As the ships pulled away under the cheering of the villagers that came to see them off, the shots of cannon fire could be heard from the mountains. What's going on? Another attack? Sanji frowned, looking towards the castle. Hey Chopper. The lady told you to watch the skies, didn't she? Luffy grinned at the reindeer who hid behind the mast. He walked to Luffy's side just as the snow that fell from the sky turned pink. It's beautiful. Nami gasped, looking up at the snow in wonder. Chopper began to cry, letting his tears flow unashamed as he watched the pink snow fall onto the deck. It held no meaning for everyone else on board, but to Chopper, it meant a world of difference. I won't disappoint you. Doctor! Chopper yelled at the sky. The others could only wonder which doctor he was referring to. I'll be the best doctor ever. On a marine battleship headed towards Alabasta, a marine captain sighed as she watched two marines competing to see who had taken out more enemies on the pirate ship they had boarded. She looked down at the eternal pose, making sure they were still on the right track before sighing again. The two marines strutted towards her, flowers hidden behind their backs while arguing whose flowers the captain was going to accept. One of them wore heart-shaped sunglasses while the other had iron bracers on both his fists. They knelt on the floor in front of them, thrusting their arms out at her. Captain Hina. Please accept these flowers as a token of our love. I don't want it. Now hurry up and set a course to Alabasta. If anything happens to Commodore Luffy before we get there, I'll have your heads. Hina shouted at them. Yes, Captain Hina, the two marines saluted in unison, scrambling to obey. Hina stared down at the Vivre card, breathing a sigh of relief. Before, the card had been burnt to the size of a nail, but it had now returned back to its normal size of about half her palm. You better take good care of him, Smoker. Hina tucked the Vivre card inside her blouse. Chapter 17, on the other side. So you ate the Hito Hito fruit and became a half-human? Usopp raised an eyebrow. Yep, I can transform between a reindeer, human and half-form, which I am right now. Chopper nodded while grinding some herbs on a grindstone. EHHH? You can transform? Luffy yelled with sparkles in his eyes. The three of them were in the men's room with Luffy tied down to the bed. Chopper had insisted he stayed in bed for at least another 2 days even though he didn't have a fever anymore. Luffy had strongly protested against it, and it took the combined efforts of the whole crew, Smoker, every other marine on the battleship and probably 3 or 4 tranquilizer shots before they managed to get him to lie down. Nami was the one who suggested untying him down too, though Luffy had easily broken through the ropes the first time. Sanji then threatened him that he will never feed him again if he didn't listen to what Chopper said, and that finally made the stubborn Commodore silent, though they decided to tie him up again for the trouble he caused. My devil fruit is a Zoan type. All Zoan devil fruit users are able to transform. Chopper tilted his head at him, as though already expecting him to know. So cool! Luffy yelled. Praising me won't make me happy, you jackass. Chopper yelled, a huge smile plastered on his face. Hey! So can we see your transformations? Luffy tried to turn as best as he could against the restraints. Well, if you insist. I suppose I dash. The door to the room was flung open without warning as Nami barged into the room. Hey guys! Lunch is served. Yay! Food! Chopper and Usopp rushed out of the room. Luffy pushed himself upright from the bed, snapping the ropes like they weren't even there. Stay! Nami pointed a finger menacingly at him. But I'm hungry. Luffy protested. Nami sighed, shaking her head. I'll bring you food, just don't get out of bed. She closed the door behind her without waiting for a reply. Luffy pouted while he swung his legs to the edge of the bed, swinging his legs back and forth against the bed. He let his eyes wander around the now empty room, his marine cloak hanging on the stand next to the bed. He stayed sitting up until Nami returned with 2 plates of food in her hands. She handed a plate to Luffy, while sitting herself beside Luffy. This isn't enough for me. Luffy pointed down at his food with a frown. Nami smirked at him. Doctor's orders, you can't eat too much right now, so you'll just have to deal with it. Luffy let out a pout as he dug into his food ravenously, stingy. Nami poked his cheek, eat slowly. Luffy relented and slowed down his chewing, watching Nami eat her own food. You seem awfully happy? Luffy tilted his head. Hee, you noticed? I counted our total savings just now. Nami rubbed her thumb and index finger together, grinning wickedly. Really? How much do we have? 100 million and a little over, Nami squealed happily. I can't believe we got so much in such a short time. And to think it took me 8 years the last time. Shishishi, so how much food can we buy with 100 million? Luffy grinned. Nami sighed, though a smile still plastered on her face. Can't you think about something else to buy other than food? How about more food? Luffy laughed. Nami giggled alongside him. So how are you feeling now? Chopper did say you might feel lethargic from recovering. Nami glanced at Luffy carefully. Luffy puffed his chest. I already told you guys, I'm fine. I don't need to stay in bed anymore. How can I rest when everyone else is working? Nami pinched his cheek. I told you, just focus on recovering. Besides, I don't see Captain Smoker working his ass off either. If you ask me, he seems pretty relaxed on that lounge chair of his. Well, he does have a bigger crew after all. Luffy rubbed the cheek Nami pinched. And he is going out of his way to escort us to Alabasta after all. Nami took the empty plate from Luffy. Well, I don't care about that, you just stay in bed until Chopper says otherwise. Nami walked to the door, turning to point an accusing finger at him. I mean it. If I see you out of bed before our doctor gives the okay, you won't be eating any of my tangerines anytime soon. Luffy raised his hands in surrender. I'll be good. Nami left the room again, leaving Luffy alone with his thoughts. Luffy frowned as the door shut behind Nami. I'm still weak. He looked down and clenched his fists. He didn't let the others know, but he felt especially frustrated when he was forced to rely on the others for help. All that training. And I still need to be protected. Luffy glanced at the marine cloak that hung beside the bed, the word justice prominently displayed towards him. I have to get stronger, no matter the cost. I don't want to feel powerless ever again. Luffy stepped out on the deck, stretching himself with a satisfied groan. He managed to endure the 2-day confinement in bed after everyone had threatened him with something of their own if he didn't. He hopped onto the figurehead of Mary, sitting himself on it as he let the cool breeze blow past him, his cloak billowing behind him. Luffy, we'll be nearing Alabasta in 2 more days, what are your plans? Smoker called out from the battleship sailing alongside Mary. Luffy glanced back at Vivi. Which part of Alabasta are we headed for, Vivi? Vivi scratched her chin, contemplating. We'll head to the port city of Nanohana to resupply first, then we'll have to make our way to the town of Yuba where the rebel army is located at. Why do we have to meet the rebel army? Aren't we going to beat up Crocodile? Usopp tilted his head. Vivi shook her head. It's not enough to just beat Crocodile, we still have to stop the civil war from escalating any further. If I can meet the leader of the rebel army, I can convince them that the whole thing was set up from the start and stop the battle before it happens. And what about Crocodile? Zoro raised an eyebrow. Once we stop the civil war, we'll have plenty of time to arrest him, Smoker grunted. You sure he won't just up and run away? Sanji frowned. Smoker smirked. Even if he tries to run, he'll be a wanted criminal again. It's already over for him. So his plans are already doomed to fail from the start? I like that, Nami grinned. Speaking of which, what's with the giant cloud of smoke ahead? Usopp nodded towards the white cloud directly ahead of them. Oh, that's just steam, nothing to worry about, Nami glanced at the cloud. There should be an underwater volcano underneath that spot, perhaps in a few thousand years, there might be a new island here. Wow, do you think we'll be here to see it? Chopper stared at the smoke with sparkles in his eyes. I highly doubt any of us can live long enough to see that, Chopper. Usopp patted his head. On another note, our supplies do seem to be running quite low, Sanji frowned, glancing towards Luffy. Don't suppose you could fish up another Sea King? Luffy grinned, standing up, leave it to me. He passed his straw hat and cloak to Nami before jumping into the sea without a second thought. Is he seriously going to catch a Sea King? Chopper leaned over the railing, staring at the sea. You better believe it, Zoro grinned. That guy's the real monster among us. A few seconds passed silently as both ships sailed towards the steam. Smoker finally raised an eyebrow. You think he can find us inside the steam? The Straw Hats glanced at one another before rushing to the side of the railing, screaming out in unison. Luffy! Luffy kicked through the water, using Jeppo to accelerate himself through the water quickly, scanning the water for any signs of a Sea King. He didn't have to wait long to find one. A greenish serpentine Sea King spotted him and began charging towards Luffy, jaws opening wide to swallow him whole. A bit small. But you'll have to do, Luffy thought to himself, kicking towards the Sea King to meet it. The Sea King snapped its jaws at Luffy, trying to swallow the marine whole, only to end up with a mouthful of seawater. Luffy had kicked himself away at the last moment, ending up beside the Sea King's head. Luffy smirked as he threw his fist back, encasing it in armament hockey before delivering a crushing blow straight into the side of the Sea King's head. A shockwave blasted out from the punch, sending waves in every direction that could be felt even on the ships above, rocking both the battleship and Mary on the crashing waves. The Sea King's eyes rolled back into its head as Luffy grabbed its jaws with a hand, swimming back up towards the surface while towing it behind him. He broke through the surface of the water, the carcass of the Sea King surfacing behind him. Where's everyone? Luffy frowned, scanning around the empty seas. He set his sights on the steam ahead of him, focusing his observation hockey to find the voices of his friends. Shishishi found them, Luffy grinned, diving back down with the Sea King behind him. Oh. This steam reeks of sulfur. Usopp coughed. I can't see a thing in here. Vivi frowned, bumping against the mast of the ship. Just bear with it, we should be almost through. Nami stayed near the mast. An explosion of warm water buffeted them suddenly, enough to get them soaked but not enough to throw anyone overboard. Hey guys! I'm back. Luffy laughed, standing on the railing while holding on to the Sea King. Luffy? Is that you? Did you manage to catch one? Sanji groped around blindly towards Luffy's voice. Yep. Though it's rather small, Luffy chuckled. Zoro shook the water out of his hair. Can't you be more careful? Now I'm soaked. How did you even find us? Nami shuffled towards Luffy's direction carefully, hands reached out in front of her. Oh, I just followed your voices. Luffy sat on the railing, securing the Sea King to the side of the ship with a rope. It's another one of that hockey thing, isn't it? Zoro frowned. Yeah, this one's a little trickier to master though. Luffy stepped onto the deck, the only one who wasn't fazed with the zero visibility. He gripped Nami's and Sanji's hands just as they neared the railing, pulling their hands down to their sides as they gasped in shock. Don't walk around like that, you might trip on something, Luffy grinned. Never thought I'd hear you say something sensible, Sanji grinned. A few minutes passed before both ships finally pulled out of the steam, both crews breathing out a sigh of relief. The Straw Hats glanced over the railing to inspect Luffy's catch, the Sea King easily dwarfing the ship itself with the head twice the size of Mary. You call this small? Sanji pointed an accusing finger at the Sea King. Luffy blinked at him, as though Sanji just asked him a really stupid question. Of course it's small, the ones my grand heir trainer made me fight were several times bigger than this. The others only could shook their heads silently while Chopper glanced up at Luffy with sparkles in his eyes. That was when they realized there was a man clinging to the side of the Sea King. The man wore a flamboyantly pink overcoat over his blue medieval clothes that showed his unshaven legs. A pair of ballet shoes accompanied his dressing while two swans poked out from his shoulders. To top it off, he wore heavy makeup complete with lipstick, eyeliner, and blush. There's an Okama! The crew shouted, shocking the man into letting go of the Sea King and falling into the sea. Everyone watched as he splashed into the sea, waiting for the eventual surfacing of the Okama that never came. Don't tell me. He can't swim? Chopper gasped. Without hesitation, Luffy leapt into the water again, kicking both his feet back and rocketing into the water. He found the Okama sinking into the sea, his body frozen up in a ballet pose as he sunk. Luffy grabbed him by the wrist and jumped back out from the sea, landing on the deck of Mary with a gasping Okama. The Okama bowed his head to them. Please forgive this foolish swan for wandering onto your boat, to be rescued by Marines. I am in your debt. What the hell are you doing clinging on that Sea King? Nami raised an eyebrow. The Okama bowed again. I do not know what overka. Me, but I was on a ship with my comrades while passing through the steam, and before I knew it, I ended up on the Sea King. That doesn't explain anything. The crew shouted at him. What's going on over there? Smoker shouted across from his ship. Nothing, we just rescued an idiot from the sea. Zoro waved his hand at him. I see. Smoker raised an eyebrow before disappearing back to his ship. So you can't swim? Usopp crossed his arms at the Okama. The Okama sat up. Indeed, for you see, I have eaten a devil fruit myself. Oh? Which one is it? Sanji raised his eyebrow at him. The Okama scratched his chin. Oh, well, I have no doubt my comrades are looking for me now. I guess I can treat you daisies to a show while waiting for them. He patted his leg as he stood up, throwing his arm back. Behold my ability. He slammed his right palm towards Luffy, only for Luffy to tilt his head towards the side, avoiding his palm strike. The Okama raised an eyebrow as he struck his palm towards Luffy's head again, missing again when Luffy tilted his head the other way. The Okama frowned as he delivered a flurry of palm strikes with his right hand at Luffy's face, but Luffy managed to avoid them all with minimal effort. What the hell are you doing? Nami smacked the Okama on the head. Oh phooey, the Okama rubbed his head where Nami had smacked him. I wanted to surprise you daisies too. I need to touch your face with my right hand for my ability to work. Oh, why didn't you say so? Luffy grinned, standing in front of the Okama. Now behold my ability. The Okama touched Luffy's face gently this time. He did a pirouette on the spot in front of Luffy, now stoop joking around. When he finally came to a stop, Luffy found himself staring at his own face. "Hey! It's me!" Luffy laughed. "They're identical." Usopp gasped. "Surprised?" The Okama laughed. "This is the power of my main fruit. If I touch my face again with my left hand, I go back to normal." True to his word, as soon as his left hand touched his face, the Luffy mask he had on him disappeared. His voice and shape. They were exactly the same. Nami gasped. "That's so cool." Both Luffy and Chopper had sparkles in their eyes. "Ga ha 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 ha." "As long as I touch a person's face with my right hand," the Okama laughed as he skipped along the deck, touching Zoro, Usopp and Sanji's faces. "I can change into them whenever I want." He spun as he changed his face into each of the three men with each spin. The Okama changed his face back before sighing sadly, "Well, that's all I can risk showing you right now. But that's so awesome. Show us more. I want to see more." Chopper, Usopp and Luffy had sat themselves in front of the Okama and clapped at him to continue. The Okama immediately leapt up and did a pirouette. "Well, for my next act then." He's easily convinced. Nami's sweat dropped. "I'll show you my memory ability. Any faces that I've touched in the past." The Okama touched his face several times, changing his face into faces that the crew have never seen before. The crew did not notice Vivi gasp at one of the faces he had changed into. "I do not forget." The Okama flourished. "Bravo! Bravo!" The Okama's three attentive audience clapped enthusiastically before proceeding to dance along with him. "Ugh! You guys are unbelievable." Sanji shook his head. Nami noticed a ship sailing towards them from the distance. "Hey, is that your comrade's ship?" The Okama leapt up on the railing, spotting the ship. "Oh phooey, time to part ways already? Such a pity." "Nu?" Luffy, Usopp and Chopper groaned. The Okama turned back to them, tears in his eyes. "Fear not, my silly billies. Farewells are always inevitable. But never forget this, the length of time spent together has no bearing on true friendship." The Okama leapt from Mary onto the boat, giving them a thumbs up. Chopper, Usopp and Luffy waved at the ship's railing. "Let's meet again someday." The Okama's ship sped away. "Let us be off, my daisies." "Yes sir, Mr. Tubon Curii." The crew shouted back. The deck of Mary became silent immediately. Smoker appeared on the deck in a cloud of smoke, raising an eyebrow at the straw hats. "Hey, I thought I heard someone call out Mr. Two?" "He's one of them." Luffy frowned. "Who?" Smoker tilted his head. "The Okama we rescued just now," Sanji offered. Smoker cursed under his breath. "Should we give chase? Commodore Luffy?" Luffy shook his head. "No. He's headed in the opposite direction. We don't have time to waste anymore." Usopp looked up at Vivi who stood above the deck. "Didn't you recognize him, Vivi?" Vivi shook her head. "I've never met him before and I never knew about his abilities. This is bad. When he was showing off the faces earlier, I noticed one of them was the face of my father's." "He had the face of the king of Alabasta?" Nami gasped. Vivi nodded slowly, frowning towards the direction where Mr. Two had disappeared to. "Just what has he been using my father's face for?" "With the face of the king, the amount of damage he could do is immeasurable." Zoro crossed his arms. "If he realizes that we are the enemy, he can use our faces to turn us against one another." Nami bit her thumb. Smoker grunted. "We'll have to come up with a countermeasure then." "You have a plan?" Sanji glanced at the captain. "A password? A gesture?" "No. He can find out about these easily." Smoker scratched his chin. "What about this?" Zoro held up a length of bandage. Chopper raised an eyebrow. "Are we going to pretend we're injured?" Zoro let a smirk cross his face. He took out a marker and drew a cross on his arm before tying the bandage around it, holding it up for the rest to see. "A two-step verification system? That seems too smart for someone like you to come up," Sanji noted. "Shut up, you arrow cook." I'll kill you. Zoro yelled at him. So if one of us doubts the other's true identity, we'll have them show us their mark. Nami scratched her chin. Indeed, this would clear up any doubts and avoid any infighting. It won't be easy for him to find out about this either, Smoker nodded. We'll go ahead with it then. In the meantime, continue on our route to Alabasta. Luffy rolled up his sleeves, taking up a length of bandage as well. Everyone nodded, taking up their own length of bandage as well. The thing I'm worried about though, is the current condition of your father, Vivi. Luffy glanced at the princess. My father? Why? Vivi tilted her head. Mr. 2 could turn into your father. That means he has managed to find a way to get within touching distance of the king. Luffy frowned at her, his eyes serious. Vivi stifled a gasp, realizing her father might be in grave danger. What do we do? I suggest we go straight to the capital instead of looking for the rebels. Make sure the king himself is safe. If he gets replaced by a fake, all our efforts would be in vain anyway. Luffy tightened the bandage around his arm. But what about the rebels? And Crocodile? Vivi frowned. We can deal with the rebels after you return to your father. I'm sure it'll be easier for you to contact the rebels once you're there, right? Nami clasped her shoulder. That's true. Vivi nodded. Smoker cracked his knuckles. As for Crocodile, we can split up to take him out. Zoro raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? We'll have a group escort Princess Vivi to her father and ensure both of their safety, then we'll have another group infiltrate towards Rain Base. Smoker grinned. Rain Base? The Straw Hats tilted their heads. Vivi widened her eyes. It's where Crocodile currently resides. How did you know that? Smoker raised an eyebrow at her. It's no big secret among the Marines to where each of the warlords are. We do need to keep tabs on them, after all. Alright, that means I'm going to Rain Base then. Luffy stretched himself. So who's going with him? Sanji crossed his arms. Smoker and Zoro stepped forward without hesitation. So that leaves the rest of us to escort Vivi. Sanji glanced at the others. Tashigi will accompany you with the rest of my men. I want you guys to make sure the king is properly protected while we're dealing with Crocodile. Smoker jerked a thumb towards his ship. But what about the other agents? No doubt they would be on the move as well. Zoro frowned. If their goal is to seize this country for their own, their final destination should lie within the capital of Alabasta itself. I dare say these agents will definitely be assembling there as well. Sanji smirked. Unfortunately, we still don't know when they will put their plans into motion. Nami bit her thumb. Not quite, since Mr. 2 is still out here. I doubt Crocodile would want to move before all his agents are gathered together. Zoro grinned. So we still have time to foil his plans. Usopp clapped his hands. Vivi nodded. We'll first dock at Nanohana, then we'll move up towards the capital city, Aliobarna. Then Smoker, Zoro and I will go ahead to Rain Base and kick Crocodile's ass. Luffy punched his fist in the air. Marines poured into the harbor after both ships dropped anchor in the port town of Nanohana. The Straw Hats stood attentively in front of their commodore, awaiting their commander's instructions. All right, we'll be buying supplies from this town before setting off to Alialama, Luffy began. It's Aliobarna, Luffy, Nami injected. Shishishi, right, Aliabanana. We'll meet back here in half an hour. Luffy grinned. Aliobarna, Luffy, Usopp offered. Aliobarna. Right, just meet back here in half an hour. We'll be using the ships to travel upstream towards the capital. Aye, sir. The Straw Hats saluted smartly before dispersing. Tashigi stepped up beside Luffy. Commodore, Luffy. I'll have my men resupply as well before joining all of you upstream. It'll take a longer while for us to get ready since we have a larger crew. It's alright then, what about Smoker? Luffy tilted his head at her. I'll join your ship, Smoker grunted, stepping beside Tashigi. She can handle the others. Okie dokie, we'll meet you there, Tashigi. Yes sir. Tashigi spun around to rejoin her men. On another note, isn't that Hina's ship? Smoker jerked his chin towards the other marine ship at the dock. Eh? Oh. It is. So Hina already got here. Luffy grinned. You don't suppose we should link up with her? Smoker raised an eyebrow. Luffy laughed, why not? It'll be fun with more people. Smoker sighed, where do you propose we find her? Luffy shrugged, I wouldn't know, maybe we'll find her by walking around town. Want to join me? Smoker glanced back at his men, still in the midst of disembarking. I guess why not, we have time. Let's go then. Luffy led the way to the town center. Before the two could even exit the harbor, a huge pillar of flame sprouted up from within the city. What's going on there? Smoker frowned. Don't know, should we check it out? Luffy grinned. Smoker nodded in affirmative before they ran towards the pillar of fire, going against the crowd of people that are trying to run away from it. We'll have to go above this crowd, Luffy. Smoker blasted himself to one of the many roofs around, glancing back to see Luffy literally running on air as he kept up behind him. Another wall of flame sprouted up near the first one and gunfires were heard. Both Marine officers sped to the scene, finding a pirate facing off against a company of Marine riflemen, his body spewing out flames. The pirate was bare-chested with a tattoo of a purple cross behind a mustached skull on his back. He had black knee-length shorts accompanied with a pair of black combat boots. On his head rested an orange hat with two blue smileys on the rim. Smoker furrowed his brows as he recognized the pirate. What is he doing here? Without hesitation, he propelled himself with his smoke, stabbing his jit towards the pirate. The man had noticed his descent, smirking at him as he blasted himself back with fire from his hands. Captain Smoker! The Marines gasped as the captain stepped out from the crater he smashed. What is the commander of the Whitebeard Pirates 2nd Division doing here? Smoker pointed his jit at the pirate. The man grinned at him, hey, I was just passing through, I didn't even start any trouble. Smoker narrowed his eyes, don't lie to me, you pirates are all the same, causing trouble wherever you go. Smoker? What are you doing here? A female Marine captain stepped out, biting down on her cigarette. Good to see you too, Hina, mind telling me what's going on? Smoker nodded in greeting. Hina grinned, caught him wandering around the town. He said he was looking for another pirate and his brother. What do you think? Smoker cracked his knuckles, I think we should take him down, and you might want to put out that cigarette of yours. Hina frowned, I agree with the first one, but why the cigarette? You should know who I was with before I got here, Smoker grunted, propelling himself towards the pirate with his jit by his side. It didn't take long for Hina to spot Luffy sitting at one of the roofs, watching Smoker and the pirate duke it out with a smile on his face. Hina brightened up as she crushed her cigarette under her heel without hesitation, ignoring the two Logia devil fruit users going at each other's throats. You should know better than to fight me, Captain Smoker. Your smoke fighting against my fire won't get us anywhere, the pirate smirked. He swung his arm in an arc, spewing out a wall of fire to block Smoker from reaching him. Smoker gritted his teeth as he launched himself up in the air above the fire, propelling himself towards the pirate. Port gas de ace. Cease your resistance. Smoker stabbed his jit towards him. Ace sidestepped the blow, blasting himself back from the Marine again. No can do Smokey, I'm rather busy now. Don't you dare call me that. Smoker yelled, swinging his jit at the pirate. Ace leaned back to avoid the blow, chuckling to himself. He didn't notice the figure kicking towards him from behind. Hina planted a kick firmly on his face, sending him crashing away from them. What took you? Smoker grunted, stepping beside Hina. I was here first, Smoker-kun, I should be asking you that. Hina smirked at him. Where's Luffy? Smoker watched Ace get back up from the floor, frowning at them. Hina flicked her hair back, he's content to watch for now it seems. I guess we shouldn't disappoint then, Smoker cracked his knuckles before hefting his jit on his shoulder. Ace frowned at them, he can handle a single Marine captain without breaking a sweat, but with two working together? He might cause quite a bit of collateral damage to his surroundings. Hey! Any chance you two could just let me go? I really don't want to fight. Ace scratched his head. No way, both Hina and Smoker lunged towards him. Smoker swung his jit towards Ace's right while Hina kicked low towards his left. Ace grinned as he backhanded Smoker's jit away while jumping over Hina's kick. He spun in circle as he spewed flames from all over his body, encasing himself in a tornado of flames. Both captains gritted their teeth as they leapt back from the flames, shielding themselves from the heat. This guy's more trouble than he's worth, Hina crossed her arms. He's not a commander of the Whitebeard pirates for nothing, Smoker swung his jit in an arc. Ace released his flames as he smirked at them. Can I leave now, pretty please? You, Smoker began, just as a figure rushed towards Ace, fists clenched and punching towards the pirate. Ace flinched back just in time to avoid the blow, frowning at the newcomer. He didn't have time to speak as the figure spun on his heel and kicked towards his head, missing the pirate by mere inches. Don't take me lightly. Ace blasted a gout of flame at him. The figure disappeared just as the fire reached him, reappearing behind Ace. Ace only had time to gasp as the figure tackled him, arms wrapping around his waist and pushing him onto the ground. Ace! Luffy shouted, hugging his brother. Luffy? Ace stared down at his brother in disbelief. Both Smoker and Hina tilted their heads at them. Ace! What are you doing here? Luffy got up, holding out a hand to him. Ace grinned as he pulled himself up. You didn't get my message at Drum Island? I said I would be waiting here for a while. Luffy raised an eyebrow and shook his head. Ah, no matter, so I see you really did become a Marine. Are you an admiral yet? Ace punched Luffy's shoulder lightly. Shishishi, I'm still a Commodore, but I'm getting there. So are you going to be the Pirate King anytime soon? Luffy laughed. Well, I decided I'm going to help Whitebeard be the Pirate King instead. I owe him a lot. Ace rubbed his neck sheepishly. Don't mind if we interrupt. Luffy? What's going on? Do you know him? Hina approached the two. Ace wrapped an arm around Luffy's neck, bringing him into a headlock. This is the brother I was talking about. You're brothers with Commodore Luffy? Smoker widened his eyes. Your names aren't even the same. We're not related by blood, Luffy laughed as he pried himself from the headlock. But he's my brother all the same. Hina and Smoker looked at each other, unsure of what to do. So what brings you here, Ace? Luffy poked Ace on the arm. Ace adjusted his hat as his grin faltered slightly. I'm hunting for another Whitebeard pirate that had killed one of our own. He used to be my subordinate, so I had to take responsibility for his treachery. That aside, what are you doing here? Are you on patrol? Nah, I'm here to stop a civil war, Luffy said casually. Heh, not bad, Ace pinched Luffy's cheek playfully. Well, I'd like to stay and chat, but I don't think your colleagues would take well to my presence. Luffy glanced at Hina and Smoker, both of them had their predatory eyes glued on Ace. Guys? Can we let him go? Luffy twiddled his fingers. Both captains glanced at the Commodore incredulously. Luffy, he's a commander of Whitebeard's crew, Smoker frowned. Even if he's your brother, he's still a dangerous pirate. Hina scratched her chin. Luffy stared at them with puppy eyes. Pretty please? Hina flinched back immediately, turning around to face the other way. I see no pirate around, do you, Smoker-kun? Smoker stared at her with wide eyes. What? You can't just. But. Smoker looked back at Luffy, there seemed to be sparkles in his eyes now. Damn it. I'll wait for you back at the harbor. Smoker stormed away, fuming. Then I'll meet you back at the harbor too, Luffy. It's nice to see you again. Hina pulled him into a bear hug before running after Smoker. You have interesting companions. Ace stared after the two departing captains. Shishishi, I know. Do you want to meet my crew? Luffy grinned. Ace raised an eyebrow. They're all Marines, aren't they? Yeah. It'll be fine. You can just meet us out at sea later, we're setting off in about half an hour. Luffy grinned. Ace smirked. You're not giving them a lot of trouble, are you? Knowing how you're like back when we were still young, you were really quite the troublemaker. Hey! I'm a Marine officer now. I know how to take care of my crew. Luffy pouted. Right, Ace ruffled Luffy's hair. I heard Gramps took you away with him right after I left? Yeah, he was rather disappointed that you weren't there with me. Luffy frowned. Oh well, we have different dreams after all, tell Gramps I'm sorry. Ace scratched his head guiltily. On another note, you seem to have gotten stronger, Luffy. Luffy smirked at him, yeah. Gramps trained me a lot. I can beat you now. Yeah, okay, Luffy. Keep telling yourself that, Ace laughed. It's true. I'm much stronger than before. Luffy puffed his cheeks. Ace ruffled his brother's hair again. Alright, my little brother has gotten much stronger. Come find me again when you become an admiral. I will. And I'll prove to you then that I'm stronger than you. Luffy placed his hands on his hips. Ha, I'll wait for you then. Go join up with your friends, I'll catch up with you. Ace shooed him towards the town. I'll see you later. Luffy waved back as he sprinted towards the still departing captains. Luffy caught up to Smoker and Hina just as they entered the town. Lighten up, Smoker-kun, you don't want to upset Luffy now, do you? Hina prodded him. Shut up. Smoker crossed his arms. Luffy leapt onto Smoker's back without warning. Thanks, Smokey. I owe you one. Shut up. Get off me. Smoker shook the Commodore off his back, though a grin still plastered on his face. Hina chuckled as Luffy finally got off Smoker. Speaking of which, Luffy. Do you know what's going on with Crocodile? Alright, I suppose you're the one headquarters sent to investigate? Smoker grunted, walking towards the harbor. Hina nodded an affirmative, throwing an arm over Luffy's shoulders. So do explain, my Commodore, just what exactly have I gotten myself into? Luffy scratched his chin. Well, the whole civil war in Alabasta was instigated by Crocodile, so now we're going to kick his ass. That kinda summarizes it, Smoker grinned. Specifically, one of his commanders, Luffy, and I will be heading to where Crocodile is. Hina squeezed Luffy closer to her. And the others? They'll be guarding the king and the princess. We have a hunch Crocodile might send his agents to target them. Smoker pointedly looked away from her. Well then, that commander can join them in guard duty. I'm going with you guys too. Hina poked Luffy on the cheek. Smoker frowned. Who'll lead the rest? I'm sure that Tashigi of yours or any of Luffy's crew can lead proficiently. Hina grinned. Smoker raised an eyebrow at her. No one on your side? Hina remembered the two new recruits and quickly shook her head. They're a hopeless bunch. Fine then, Smoker grunted. But you'll have to tell them yourself. The three Marine officers continued their way to the harbor. Going Merry pulled away from the harbor, leaving the other two Marine ships behind to head towards the river. Besides the usual straw hats, Smoker and Hina stood among them on the deck. Why do I have to give up my spot to you? Can't I just go along as well? Zoro protested, standing face to face with Hina. Hina crossed her arms. 4 persons too much of a crowd. We'll get detected easier while heading to Rain Base. Well then why don't you stay behind? None of us had officer training, so you're better suited than us to lead. Zoro poked a finger at her. Then consider this your impromptu officer training. All of you are holding officer positions, so you're expected to lead. You can't push this responsibility away forever. Hina countered, standing firm. Zoro glanced back at the rest of the crew, all of them staring at the two of them uneasily. Commander Zoro, Smoker leaned on the mast. Just let it be. Take care of the rest of your crew, leave your Commodore to us. Zoro humped as he turned away from Hina, stomping back to rejoin the others. Let's confirm our roles then. Nami stepped forward. We are to sail upstream and escort Vivi to the city of Aliobarna. With the exception of Commodore Luffy, Captain Hina and Captain Smoker, we are to remain in the capital and protect the royal family from any threats coming from Baroque works. How are we supposed to get to Rain Base from there though? Hina frowned. I should be able to request the deployment of our super spot build duck squad, they're the fastest squad in Alabasta, Vivi offered, glancing at Karoo. I guess there's nothing to do but to wait then? Sanji leaned against the railing, watching the waves roll past, just in time to see a figure speeding towards them on a striker. His eyes widened when he sees the flag of a pirate Jolly Roger on its mast. Incoming! Sanji managed to shout as Ace leapt up from his striker onto the deck of Mary. He's a pirate! Zoro drew his swords. Chopper hid behind the mast while Usopp drew back his slingshot. Nami stood in front of Vivi and assembled her staff with a flourish. Ace nodded at them, satisfied. Not bad, you've got a good crew, Luffy. Who are you? Sanji demanded, his leg poised in the air. Luffy's brother, apparently. Smoker rolled his eyes, stepping to the back of the ship. Brother? The Straw Hats gasped collectively. Ace gave them a mock salute. Sup? Ace. Luffy ran up and gave his brother a hug. Thanks for taking care of my brother for me, no doubt he's a handful, huh? Ace grinned while ruffling Luffy's hair. Luffy pouted, I know how to take care of myself now. Mr. Ace? If you don't mind me asking? Vivi pointed to the tattoo on his back. It's as you thought, he's a member of the Whitebeard Pirates. Not just any member either, he's a commander of the 2nd Division. Hina crossed her arms. Luffy! Your family is full of dangerous people. Nami yelled at him. Shishishi, Ace is fine, he's my big brother. Luffy laughed. That's the whole point. His crew yelled at him. Ha ha ha. You have a good crew, Luffy, Ace laughed as he released Luffy from the hug. Take this. Ace tossed a folded piece of paper to him. Oh? You have a Vivre card too? I'll give you mine too. Luffy dug through his cloak until he pulled out a similar-looking piece of paper that he tore apart out to hand to Ace. Ace grinned as he tucked the Vivre card in his pants. Well, I shan't be staying here for any longer, it's not good for me to be seen with you guys anyway. Aw. It'll be fine. Can't you stay for a while? I haven't even introduced everyone yet. Luffy frowned. Ace ruffled his hair again. Sorry, Luffy, I have my own business too, but you definitely have a good crew here. Why don't you formally introduce us the next time we meet? Oh, fine. Luffy pouted. Ace turned to regard the rest of the crew, tilting his hat at them. I know he might be rather difficult at times, but I hope you'll continue to take care of him well. Having a little brother like him is stressful for an older brother's heart. Everyone nodded quickly. Ace grinned when he saw how fast their response was before leaping over the railing to land on his striker gracefully. See you, Ace. Luffy waved from the side of his ship as Ace sped away, waving back at him. Luffy? Is he really your big brother? Sanji raised an eyebrow. We're not related by blood if that's what you're asking, Luffy grinned at him. I see. Nami breathed a sigh of relief, knowing Garp only had one grandchild after all. He's nice. I expected him to be more like Luffy. Zoro scratched his head. He's such a good person. Chopper gazed after Ace's disappearing figure. But is this fine? Letting such a dangerous pirate go like that? Usopp scratched his head. Hina chuckled, well, I don't suppose any of you are in the mood to capture him now, are you? Everyone turned to their grinning Commodore before turning back and shaking their heads in unison. Nope, not at all. Well good, we should make haste towards Alyabarna then, we've wasted enough time already. Smoker finally stepped out from the back of the ship. Full speed ahead. We're gonna kick Crocodile's ass. Luffy yelled, punching his hands in the air. Chapter 18, Thunder in the Distance. The small band of Marines made their way through the crowded streets of the city of Alyabarna. The Marines had surrounded Vivi defensively, each of them looking out for any signs of Baroque Works agents. They had managed to land the ship at the riverbed closest to the capital before heading there on foot. All of them had a traveling cloak thrown over their shoulders with the hoods up to cover their faces. "Why are we hiding ourselves again?" Usopp whispered, pushing himself through the crowd. "Crocodile's men would definitely know how Vivi looks like. If they know we've brought Vivi back, there's no telling what will happen." Nami whispered back, pulling her hood further down her face. Zoro tugged at the cloak uncomfortably. "Don't you think we look even more suspicious with these cloaks on?" "Not at all," Vivi glanced back at him. "Plenty of travelers from distant towns would wear these kinds of cloaks to protect them from the sun and sand. We'll look more like traveling merchants if nothing else." "Vivi Chuan is so smart." Sanji swooned. "What an idiotic buffoon," Zoro sighed. Sanji gritted his teeth at Zoro. "Shut up, you insensitive brute. This is why you'll never get a girl. And you doing that will actually get you one?" "Perhaps in a million years or so," Zoro smirked. "You wanna go?" Sanji rolled up his sleeves. "You don't stand a chance." Zoro reached for his blades under his cloak. "Knock it off." Nami chopped Sanji on the head. "Is this how a marine officer acts?" Hina slapped Zoro at the back of his head. Sanji pirouetted around Nami. "Yes, Nami-swan." Zoro rubbed his head to ease the pain. He started it. "That's enough. Can we just move towards the castle without any more fuss?" Smoker frowned at them. They quieted down and moved back to their original positions around Vivi, passing through the streets of the city into a side street for a shortcut. "So hot." Chopper whined, clinging onto Luffy's back. "I guess you really are a reindeer, huh, Chopper?" Usopp poked him. Chopper frowned. "Of course I'm a reindeer, what are you talking about?" "A tanuki," Zoro said offhandedly. "I'm a reindeer." Chopper yelled. All right, Chopper, just let it rest, you're no good in the heat anyway." Luffy grinned at him. "It's so hot." Chopper whined again. Vivi glanced back at the doctor apologetically. "Sorry, we're almost there already, just bear with it for a while longer." The 9 of them continued to wade through the streets towards the palace, finally reaching the stairs that lead up towards its gates. The palace guards by the sides crossed their weapons, barring their path. "Halt! State your business here," one of the guards commanded. Vivi lifted a hand to pull back her hood, but Smoker reached out a hand to stop her. "Stick to the ruse, we don't know if Crocodile has agents among the royal army either." Vivi nodded, allowing the hood to fall back down to further hide her face. She stepped forward to address the guards. "We're traveling merchants, we have wares we wish to show the king." "What kind of wares?" The other guard raised his eyebrow. Vivi faltered a bit at the question, but Sanji managed to step up. "They're of a rather sensitive nature, the king ordered it from us himself." "I'm sure gentlemen like yourselves understand this, right?" The guards looked at one another before turning to the group. "You can enter, but we'll have our eyes on you." "Much appreciated." Sanji nodded towards the guards as thanks while they pushed the large gates open. A group of 4 guards stood on the other side of the gate, ready to receive them. "Lead these merchants to the king." The guard at the gate nodded to the escorts. The 4 guards took their positions with 2 at the back and 2 at the front, silently leading the way to the audience chamber. "What's with all the security?" Usopp frowned. Zoro snorted. "If you happen to forget, this country's still in the midst of a civil war." "Do you think they'll let anyone near the king?" "No, Usopp's right. My father's not the kind of person who would do this. Something must have happened." Vivi whispered soft enough to not be overheard by the guards. They stopped in front of a large double door, 2 more guards flanking by the sides of the door. "Your Majesty, a group of merchants request audience." "Send them in," a muffled reply sounded from behind the door. The doors were pushed open to reveal a grand chamber within. A large red carpet led from the door to an elevated platform that the throne sat. A large group of royal guards flanked both sides of the hall. The king himself sat on the throne, his posture upright and proud like a king, but his eyes showed the weariness of sleepless nights. No doubt the war in his own country has taken a rather large toll on his health. Even with that, he still managed to greet the group with a smile. On the other hand, the 2 men that flanked the throne had their arms crossed, glaring down pointedly at the group. The one on the left was a tall man with a purple line under each eye that ran down along his face. He wore pure white robes that were dotted with brown star-like motifs, and a similarly decorated cloth hat sat on his head. A long scimitar was secured prominently on his right waist. The other man stood even taller with broad shoulders and dark skin. A purple sash was secured over a larger red one over the light green tunic he wore that revealed a part of his muscular chest. A dark green coat was also draped over his shoulders that half hid the massive blade he had secured on his right waist. The group walked quickly down the hall, stopping a few feet away from the throne. The guards murmured among themselves about their suspicious appearances with their hands gripping their weapons tightly, though they made no move against them. "Welcome, merchants. I'm afraid we don't have much to spare in terms of coin, but you're welcome to show your wares to us. We won't begrudge you business if you offer something we need." The king nodded towards them. "We do have something highly valuable to offer, but it's for your eyes and ears only." Sanji bowed to him. The king lifted an eyebrow at them. "May I at least inquire about the nature of such an item?" "Information on the perpetrator of the civil war," Hina said confidently. The guards around the room gasped collectively while the king narrowed his eyes at them with renewed interests. "Guards, leave us," the king commanded. The guards on either side of the hall hesitated at first but immediately filtered out of the room when the king sent them a look, closing the door shut behind them. "Pell, Shaka, you guys too," the king glanced towards the two men beside him. "Your Majesty, I object to leaving you alone with these suspicious group of people," the dark-skinned man, Shaka, protested. "Let us stay, Your Majesty, this is as much of a problem for us as well," the robed Pell bowed his head. "It's all right, they can stay." Vivi stepped forward, throwing back her hood confidently. "Vivi?" The king widened his eyes. "Princess Vivi." Pell and Shaka gasped. The rest of the Marines shed their cloaks, stepping in behind Vivi. "Marines. So you've brought my daughter back? Where did you find her?" The king descended from his throne towards them, Pell and Shaka following closely behind. King Cobra, Smoker nodded towards him. "Your daughter bears grave news for you." "Vivi?" Cobra glanced back at his daughter again, still unsure if the girl standing before him was not just a figment of his imagination. "Where have you been?" "Father," Vivi hugged her father, "I'm really sorry for making you and everyone else worry. I didn't have a choice if I wanted to find out who was behind this." "Princess Vivi, what do you mean?" Shaka frowned. Vivi smiled at him. "I found out who was responsible for starting this civil war." "Who is it?" "We'll definitely bring him to justice. He dared to frame the king with the dance powder and throw our own people against each other." Pell gritted his teeth. "It's the Shichibukai, Crocodile himself." "I believe he's residing in your country?" Smoker grunted. The three men furrowed their brows when they heard that name. "Are you sure, Vivi? Could it have been an imposter?" Cobra frowned. Vivi shook her head fiercely. "I saw it with my own eyes. The hero of Alabasta, how naive I've been." Cobra clutched his forehead. "So all the things he has done, they were nothing more than a ruse. It was all to gain our trust, isn't it?" Shaka gripped his sword. "To think we have all been fooled by him. We were complete utter fools." Pell sighed. "Where's Igaram?" Cobra finally noticed the missing Royal Guard captain. Shaka and Pell visibly stiffened when they realized it too. Vivi hesitated. "He was with me, but..." Vivi glanced at Luffy. "He's fine, I'm just not sure how he'll get here after his boat was destroyed." Luffy waved his hand at her nonchalantly. Both Shaka and Pell breathed a sigh of relief. "If that's the case, we now know our enemy." Cobra furrowed his brows. Everyone turned to look at the king. Anger was clear in his eyes. "Shaka, have the army ready to move out immediately. We'll attack Crocodile at Rain Base with everything we've got left." Cobra commanded. "Your Majesty, please reconsider. Crocodile will no doubt know we're coming for him and might even just escape from the country." Pell protested. "In the meantime, the rebel army will definitely move in to capture the palace. There must be another way," Shaka supplemented. Wait, isn't the rebel army still at Yuba? They shouldn't be able to come here in such a short time, Vivi frowned. Princess Vivi, the rebel army moved out from Yuba quite some time ago. They're now stationed at Katoria. Pell frowned. Katoria? That's beside Nanohana. Vivi gasped. The Marines frowned at this revelation. I guess I'm just glad we decided not to go to Yuba after all. Nami sighed. The others should have made their way here as well. I guess we'll just have to stick with our current plan. Smoker scratched his chin. Cobra turned towards the Marines. Marines, I am forever in your debt for ensuring the safety of my daughter. I, however, advise you to leave this country before this civil war escalates any further. This is our own problem to deal with. Father! You can't fight Crocodile. Vivi protested. Indeed, Your Majesty. At least listen to the princess. We'll be handing the country over to the rebels if we go after him. Shaka stood in front of the king. Cobra frowned. Enough. Haven't I already said so many times before? The country is its people. Even if we lose the country to the rebels, it will still be rebuilt by the people themselves. Our only concern should be to not allow Crocodile to destroy it. If he wins, this country will be destroyed. Your Majesty. Pell gasped. Neither of the two royal guards had thought of that. No, father, you still cannot fight him. I've seen his power. All of you will only be going to your deaths. This will only accelerate his plans of taking over this country. Vivi gripped Cobra's arm. If I may intrude, Your Majesty, Hina stepped forward. What is it, Miss Marine? Cobra raised an eyebrow at her. Hina crossed her arms. I suggest you leave Crocodile to us. No matter how you see it, he definitely is our problem since he holds the status of a Shichibukai. Besides, we met one of his agents earlier and he had the power to transform himself into you. Sanji crossed his arms. Transform into me? Cobra frowned. Indeed, he was a devil fruit user with the power to transform himself into anyone he touches. Zoro frowned from the memory, mentally kicking himself for allowing to be touched. So that means he has touched me before. Cobra narrowed his eyes. Nami nodded. We suspect Crocodile has infiltrated agents among the royal army to allow that to happen. In that case, if you made a move against him, his agents will contact him immediately. He thought of everything. Shaka clenched his fists. What do you propose then? Cobra stretched his arms out questioningly, palms facing upward. We'll assign a guard to you and the princess for your safety. Another group of us will deal with Crocodile. In the meantime, I suggest you reveal the truth to your people. Luffy grinned. Pell sighed, easier said than done. Right now people regard Crocodile as the hero of Alabasta. They will not accept this truth easily. Even if it's not easy, we'll still have to do it. It's the only way we can avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Vivi furrowed her brows. Cobra grasped his daughter's shoulders, watching her carefully. What do you plan to do, Vivi? I'll talk to Koza, he'll definitely listen to me. Please, father. We can stop this war before it escalates any further. Vivi pleaded with tears in her eyes. Cobra glanced up at the Marines before looking at Vivi again. He sighed. I'll leave Crocodile to you Marines then. Please help me protect my country. You bet. Luffy gave a thumbs up. You have my gratitude. Cobra nodded towards them. Vivi, I'll go with you to Kantoria tomorrow morning. We can talk to Koza then. I'd also suggest you watch your back. We don't know what Crocodile is planning to do next. Smoker crossed his arms. We will tend to His Majesty's safety personally. Pell gripped his sword. In the meantime, please make yourselves at home. I thank you once again for taking care of my daughter. Cobra smiled. The weariness in his eyes seemed to fade away just by a bit. As the sun was touching the horizon, the Straw Hats and Vivi stood by the gates of the city, watching the disappearing figures of Luffy, Smoker, and Hina. The king had granted them permission to the use of the kingdom's super spot build duck squad to take them to Rainbase. They should reach Rainbase by tomorrow from here. I hope nothing goes wrong. Vivi sighed. Relax, Vivi, those guys can handle anything. Nami placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Vivichuan, shall I give you a massage to ease your worries? Sanji leaned towards her with heart-shaped eyes. Nami chopped him on the head, we don't need any from you. What a useless cook, Zoro sighed. Shut up you moss head. I don't see you trying to cheer her up. Sanji shook his fist at him. Can't you see you're just making it worse? Is there anything that's actually working in that empty head of yours? Zoro glared at him. I don't want to hear that from someone who has absolutely no sense of direction. Why you damn arrow cook? You wanna go, brute? Shut up. Both of you. Nami whacked them both on the head again. Vivi couldn't help but smile at the Marines. They had full confidence in their comrades, not even doubting for a moment they might fail to take down a Shichibukai. The war should end tomorrow too, if everything goes well, Usopp grinned confidently. I'll do my best too. Chopper pumped himself. Let's go back to the palace, we have to make sure you and your father are safe after all, Nami grinned. Vivi nodded and turned to follow them back into the city, the three Marine officers already a shadow on the horizon. The Straw Hats stood in the palace courtyard, the moon was already out, beaming down at the assembled Marines. Zoro stood in front of them, arms crossed. All right, since our Commodore isn't here, I shall be giving out your duties. Who the hell put you in charge, you damn moss head? Sanji pointed an accusing finger at him. Shut it. That Captain Hina said so, didn't she? Zoro growled at him. No, she only said you were incompetent as a leader, Sanji smirked. Not like you're any better, you damn lousy cook. You want to say something about my cooking, you uncivilized Neanderthal? Sanji stepped up to Zoro. Not like you would be able to understand me, you pervert. Zoro gritted his teeth. Shut up. Both of you. Nami smacked them on the head again. Is this what you'll stoop to once Luffy's not here? Aren't you ashamed? TCH. Zoro and Sanji looked away from each other. Nami huffed at the two men. Now, I agree with Captain Hina that we hold officer positions among the Marines, but none of us are experienced in leading anything. I still don't have a rank though. Chopper twiddled his hooves. Usopp petted his head. You'll get one soon, I'm sure Luffy already did something about it. What are you getting at anyway, Nami? Zoro frowned. Nami smirked at him. I'm saying we go with Hina's idea, we'll learn it on the field. We'll take our direct orders from Luffy, but each day we'll have a different squad leader to facilitate our actions. We'll be more effective as a whole unit than separate entities. I don't quite understand, Usopp raised a hand. I get it, Sanji grinned proudly. What our beautiful Nami has suggested is that one of us will be appointed as a squad leader to take direct command of each of our individual actions. The squad leader will have to be commanding everyone else on where to go, who to attack and what actions to take when Luffy is otherwise occupied. Do you think we have the luxury of such a thing? Zoro frowned. A single mistake the leader makes can get all of us killed. The leader is so scary. Chopper hugged Usopp's legs. That's the whole point of us doing it now. If we can do it here, we'll definitely be a much efficient unit in the future. Nami puffed her cheeks. What if everyone has different opinions on a matter? Zoro crossed his arms. Nami faltered, she hadn't thought of that. If everyone has held the leader position before, everyone might think of different approaches to a single problem and cause chaos among the unit. Usopp raised his hand again. Why not just make it so that the leader of that day holds the final say? I mean, even commanders have advisors, but it's still up to the commander himself to decide ultimately. Nami clapped her hands. That's right. That should work. We just have to agree on never going against the leader's commands. We must have absolute faith in our companions after all. Zoro and Sanji glanced at each other. They frowned at each other but nodded at the end. What about Luffy though? Chopper raised a hoof. We can talk to him after this. I guess we can just see this as a trial period for this plan. Usopp scratched his chin. Good, Nami grinned. Now we'll start with Zoro tonight, since he was the one who brought it up. Decide on our next course of action. Zoro nodded as Sanji rejoined the ranks. this time there was no protest as Zoro gave out his commands. Our primary duties right now are to protect the royal family. We'll do a shift rotation with the king while Nami can stay with Vivi for tonight. Zoro crossed his arms. Nami nodded in understanding. As for the king, we'll do it in groups of 2. Usopp will pair with Sanji, and I will go with Chopper. That Pell and Shaka guy can join our rotation as well. Sanji, Chopper and Usopp nodded quickly. If the king is under attack, one of us will go wake the rest with the king while the last one will remain behind to hold them off. If Vivi is targeted instead, Nami will take her to us. Don't attempt to fight back. Heh, you're not too shabby, we'll go with this, Sanji smirked. Alright, let's start our mission. Usopp punched his fists in the air. Yeah. I'll do my best too. Chopper thumped his chest. Let's make our Commodore proud. Nami grinned. Usopp stifled a yawn as he stretched himself among the pillows laid down in the corner of the room. Sanji stood a few feet away, leaning by the edge of the balcony of the king's room, puffing on a cigarette. The king had readily accepted Zoro's plan but had opposed the idea of having them standing guard outside the door. Instead, he had invited them to stay in the room with him, telling them to make themselves comfortable. The royal guards Pell and Shaka, however, had vehemently refused, stating it was their duty as royal guards to be the one protecting the king and it would shame them if they needed help from others. Cobra had just waved their concerns off, stating that they already owed these Marines a huge favor when they brought Vivi safely back to them. They needed all the help they could get after all. That had then finally managed to calm the two down. Pell and Shaka had taken the first watch while Sanji and Usopp were the second group for the night. Usopp leaned back on the wall, watching the king-size bed that the king was sleeping in. Sanji soon returned from the balcony after discarding his cigarette, closing the door behind him softly to rejoin Usopp. You don't think anyone would come tonight, right? Usopp whispered. Sanji shrugged his shoulders. Hard to say, we don't know the details of Crocodile's plans after all. Usopp nodded in understanding as Sanji stood beside him, leaning against the wall. Nothing's gonna happen, right? Usopp twiddled his fingers nervously. Sanji huffed, you don't have to fight, just run with the king to the others, I'll hold them off for you. Right. Usopp sighed. It wasn't that he was afraid to fight, he was just afraid that his cowardly nature might put his friends in danger. They were all Marines now, it was their duty to protect those who don't have the power to protect themselves. But for Usopp, who had always cowered whenever there was a problem, it was rather taxing of him to adapt to such an ideal. Sure, it was obvious he had changed somewhat ever since he joined up as a Marine, but it still took great effort from him to stand up to adversaries he knows he can't beat. Just get stronger then. His Commodore had said that simply when Usopp had voiced his concerns to him. His answer was so calm and confident that Usopp couldn't help but rebut him. He said that he wouldn't understand since he was a monster, that it was easy to say something like that when he was already this strong. Luffy had silenced him with a look, not one of anger but with a look of pain and regret. I wasn't this strong in the past and I had to watch people die because of that. I forced myself to become stronger and promised myself I would protect everything that I could. Perhaps if I had been a monster earlier, I could have saved more people. Usopp had felt ashamed at his own excuses then. It was easy to make up excuses for your own shortcomings, but it would always stick with you no matter how hard you deny its existence. Luffy had, instead, faced his own powerlessness head-on and made himself stronger because of it. That was why even the giants had acknowledged his power as a warrior. I shall become stronger. Usopp clenched his fists in determination. He decided then he would train himself to become stronger than he ever was before. He wanted to be the one protecting his friends instead of constantly being protected. Of course, fate had decided just then to test his determination. The door of the balcony swung inward suddenly, two figures stepping in silently into the room. One of the figures seemed to have long frizzled hair while being short and pudgy, while the other was notably bigger in height and size. Usopp was on his feet immediately, rushing to the king's side while Sanji leapt towards the figures, leg kicking out at the bigger figure. Sanji felt his foot impact on something hard before being thrown aside. He frowned up at the man who seemed to have drawn a weapon from his back, still unable to make out any features in the darkness. Guards? That was unexpected. I thought the king never liked having guards around, much less in his own room. The shorter figure spoke really quickly. By now, Cobra was shaken awake by Usopp, who was pulling him towards the door with Sanji standing in between them and the intruders. "Step aside, runt, if you know what's good for you," the shorter figure, clearly a middle-aged woman, demanded. "No can do, I was given this mission by my squad leader," Sanji smirked, tapping his foot on the ground. "Sanji! Shut your eyes!" Usopp shouted. The two figures looked towards Usopp in confusion while Sanji immediately covered his eyes with his arm, placing full trust in his comrade. Cobra had his sleeves up to cover his face while Usopp had donned his extra dark-lensed goggles. Flash Star! Usopp released a ball of spark towards the intruders that immediately exploded into a flash of searing white light. "Argmise!" The woman screamed. "Uchu wachuach!" The man was slower to react. Sanji immediately leapt towards the two while Usopp escaped the room with the king in tow. "Collier!" Sanji kicked towards the neck of the man. He was still adamant about not hurting a lady, even if she might be an old hag who was an enemy. The large man took the full brunt of the blow with only taking a step back. "Tch, so troublesome," Sanji frowned, landing on his feet in front of the man. He spun on a foot to gain momentum before kicking his right leg towards the man's midsection with all his might. Muton shot! The big-sized man groaned as he fell back on his hunches. "Damn it, how heavy is this guy?" Sanji cursed under his breath. You're a Marine." The old lady finally got her sights back, frowning when she spotted Sanji's clothes in the moonlight. "Good evening, I assume you guys are agents from Baroque Works then?" Zoro strutted in, swords already drawn. Usopp, Chopper and Cobra stood behind the door apprehensively. Zoro and Chopper had already been on the way to the room to relieve them, meeting a panicked Usopp accompanied by the king behind. That prompted them to immediately make a dash back to the room to aid Sanji. The agent narrowed her eyes. "I see now, you're the Marines that escorted the princess back home. How fortunate, we'll take you all out with the king as well." "Heh, I think it should be unfortunate for you," Zoro smirked, tying his bandana over his head. "You guys won't be leaving here in one piece tonight," Sanji grinned. "Don't look down on us, Mr. 4. Let's get them." The large man got up unsteadily. "Myas Miri Christmas. Shut up. You're too slow. Get rid of them now." The old lady, Miss Merry Christmas, smacked him on the head. "Chopper! Protect the king. Usopp, sniper backup. Sanji, you get the big guy, I'll take the old hag." Zoro rattled out commands quickly. "Roger!" The three yelled out simultaneously. Sanji leapt towards Mr. 4 once more, aiming for another kick at his head. "There's two of us here." Miss Merry Christmas leapt at Sanji to intercept him. "Well, there's way more of us then, you old hag." Zoro slashed his sword at her, cutting her side. Miss Merry Christmas hissed as she was flung to the far end of the room while Sanji kicked at the side of Mr. 4's head, avoiding the metal bat that Mr. 4 had tried to swing at him. Miss Merry Christmas furrowed her brows and lunged towards Zoro, her fingers turning into sharp claws. "Che, another devil fruit user?" Zoro sidestepped her lunge while slashing out his swords again, cutting Miss Merry Christmas in her other side. "Zoro!" Sanji yelled out a warning as Mr. 4 barreled past the cook, swinging his metal bat at the swordsman. "Lead star!" Usopp released his slingshot, hitting Mr. 4 right between his eyes. Mr. 4 yelled out in pain, but the metal bat in his hands continued its course towards Zoro. Zoro barely had time to cross his swords to defend against the strike. The 4-ton metal bat impacted against his swords, flinging the unfortunate swordsman away to the other side of the room. Mr. 4 charged towards the groaning figure of Miss Merry Christmas, picking her up to sling her over his shoulder. "Confounded Marines! You'll all regret this. We'll retreat for today." Miss Merry Christmas yelled. "No you won't." Sanji kicked towards the pair again. This time Mr. Four managed to catch his kick with his bat, swinging the bat away from him in an arc to send the cook crashing towards Zoro as well. Mr. Four crashed through the doors leading to the balcony and leapt off without hesitation, carrying the cursing Miss Merry Christmas with him. They're getting away. Sanji cursed, pushing himself up from the shattered wall. Let them go, Zoro groaned, rubbing his head. We don't know if there are other agents around, we can't let our guard down right now. Someone go check on Vivi too. I'll go. Chopper transformed into his full reindeer form and galloped away down the corridor. So Crocodile's planning to do something with me after all. Cobra frowned, stepping back into the room. Yeah. Sorry about your room, Sanji glanced at the shattered walls and broken furniture. Cobra shook his head, all of you have protected me from harm, it's more than what I could wish for. If I was alone tonight, no doubt I would have already fallen to Crocodile. Unfortunately, it's not good news for us, Zoro sighed, taking off his bandana from his head. Everyone turned to look at him, wondering what he could mean. Zoro looked at each man in the room carefully. From this, we can conclude that Crocodile has already begun to move. We don't have the luxury of time anymore. Sanji gritted his teeth. Damn, is he going to rouse the rebel army? That's not very likely. He doesn't have a good enough motivation for them to launch a full-scale assault. Cobra scratched his chin. Another unlikely fact, Zoro grunted, pushing himself up from the floor. I doubt those agents were here to kill you, it wouldn't be beneficial to Crocodile in any way. If they're not here to kill me, then what were they trying to do? Cobra frowned. Kidnapping, of course, Sanji gritted his teeth. They'll make you disappear, then replace you with the fake guy. With that agent acting as you, Crocodile would be able to use your name to instigate the rebels to launch a full-scale attack in retaliation. This. Damn that man. Cobra clutched his forehead. I guess we will have to prepare ourselves for the worst. Usopp crossed his arms. His plans should already be set in motion. Wait, if those two are here to kidnap the king, then where's the agent that's supposed to replace him? Sanji frowned. Chopper burst into the room then, a look of panic on his face. Guys! Vivi and Nami, they're gone! What? All four yelled out at once. They left a note though. Chopper handed a folded piece of paper to Cobra. It was left on their bed. As the king unfolded the note to read, he became increasingly agitated as time passed. What is it? What happened? Zoro frowned, not liking where it was going. Cobra clutched the paper tightly, crumpling it in his hands. Why do I have such a selfless daughter? Tears began to leak out from the corners of his eyes as he turned towards the Marines. She said that she will be going ahead to Cantoria with your navigator. She didn't want to put anyone else in danger anymore. Vivi Chuan is so brave. Sanji yelled, parts appearing all over him. What do you want to do then? Usopp tilted his head at the king. Cobra hesitated for a moment, glancing down at the paper. I won't allow her to face this war alone anymore. Will you Marines accompany me to Cantoria as well? You have our support, Zoro nodded firmly. Thank you, please help me wake Pell and Shaka up, tell them to be ready to leave in a few minutes. Cobra walked towards his wardrobe, throwing his cloak around his pajamas. The four Marines raised an eyebrow at his choice of attire but said nothing. Usopp and Chopper already running out of the room to get the two Royal Guards captains. On the sands a distance away from Aliabarna, two cloaked figures rode on two super spot-billed ducks. I'm sorry for dragging you along, Nami. Vivi glanced at the navigator apologetically. Nami flashed her a grin. It's nothing, that's what friends do, right? Besides, I had orders to keep you safe too. Vivi couldn't help but smile back at her. Thank you, I'm glad to have met you guys. Hee hee, tell that to the rest after you fight. Nally stop this war, yeah? Vivi glanced back at the city that was now barely a speck on the horizon. Sorry Papa, I promise I'll stop this civil war once and for all. Nami smiled at the princess's determination. Let's go, Karoo. Vivi hunched over the back of Karoo, spurring him to run faster. The two girls disappeared into the night. On the other side of the island, 3 more cloaked figures rode on their own super spot-built ducks. Luffy rode in the middle while Hina flanked his right and Smoker his left. They had reached the river in the evening just as the other 2 marine ships docked, giving them a ride to the other side of the river before crossing back again. The captains had instructed their own crew to make haste towards the capital to lend their aid. No doubt if the war escalates, the king would need all the help he can get to evacuate the civilians. Luffy, what are you planning to do with Crocodile? Smoker asked suddenly. Luffy turned towards Smoker, giving him the look as though he had just asked something stupid. Kick his ass, of course. Smoker sighed. I meant really, you can't expect everything to be taken care of just by kicking his ass, right? I know how you're like during the officer training, you always had a plan no matter how simple it might be. Luffy's face became serious, the earlier grin disappearing. Smoker leaned to him in anticipation to catch his words. Kick his ass, stop the war, Luffy said simply. Hina laughed while Smoker wrung his hands in the air. All right. Luffy chuckled, his serious face fading away. Try to get Crocodile to cough up his plans in any way possible, we need to know what else he has planned. How, Luffy? Hina tilted her head at him. Either by force, or to get him confident enough to do it, Luffy turned to focus on the road. What about the rebels? They might launch an attack while we're gone, Smoker narrowed his eyes. Luffy grinned, the king said so himself, didn't he? They would head to Kantoria to pacify the rebels with the truth. If we play our hands right, we'll have Crocodile in custody and the end of the civil war by tomorrow. Hina impressed, to think back when you started out you could not even give any commands properly. You've grown, Luffy. Hina reached out to pull him into another hug. Hina. I'll fall. Luffy wrung his hands as he made a frantic grab for the reins, pulling himself back into the saddle. Smoker sighed, we'll reach Rain Base by dawn, what shall be our approach? The casino he owns does not allow government agents to enter, Hina noted, looking down at their uniforms. We'll change our clothes and sneak in then, Smoker suggested helpfully, glancing at the Commodore for his opinions. Luffy shook his head, we don't have time, Crocodile might already be heading to Aliabarna right now. We'll charge straight in and find out if he's still there, wring out the answers from him if he is or find any clues to his plans if he isn't. Understood, both Marine captains answered simultaneously. All 3 Marines dug their heels into the super spot-built duck sides, urging them to run faster. Meanwhile, underneath Rain Base itself, Miss All Sunday sat on a plush leather couch, idly reading her book. Crocodile sat a few feet away from her on another leather chair, sipping on his glass of wine as he watched his pet Bananawani swimming around outside the room. A Den Mushi sat on the table and a bunch of papers spread out in front of him, detailing of the Marines' departure to Rain Base. Miss All Sunday, Crocodile said suddenly. The female looked up at him from her book, slight displeasure in her eyes. Those Marines will reach here by dawn, what do you propose we do? Crocodile turned to look at her with cold eyes. Miss All Sunday shrugged, we could just leave now, they would reach here to find us already gone. Then with the destruction of this room, they would have no lead on our activities either. No, it's not time for us to move just yet. We have to leave in the afternoon to catch the show. Any earlier or later would throw our plans away, Crocodile frowned, sipping on his wine. What do you have in mind then? Miss All Sunday raised an eyebrow at him. Crocodile smiled wickedly, I think I have just the thing planned for them, it would be so much more entertaining than just killing them. As you wish, Miss All Sunday shrugged, looking back to her book with disinterest. If he had already decided on what to do, why the hell was he bothering her about it? Miss All Sunday sighed, he could be so narcissistic at times. She looked up at the Shichibukai once more before glancing at the cage in the middle of the room, frowning slightly. She knew the Marines had already managed to take the princess back to her father, placing an efficient stopper on their plans. With the information that the princess provides, the country will no doubt turn against their hero Crocodile and clear the king's name. The civil war will be grounded to a halt and Crocodile will be chased out of the country with his status as a warlord revoked. Miss All Sunday would definitely be on the run again. She hoped she could at least take a glimpse of the poneglyph of this country before she runs again, but with the current situation, she finds it highly unlikely. Perhaps if she asked nicely, that Marine with the straw hat might let her go. She wondered about that possibility. He didn't seem like other typical Marines. Though it seemed impossible at first, the more she thought about it, the more possible it seemed. She shrugged her shoulders, deciding she would deal with it when the time comes. She had already prepared herself to be on the run again, after all. All that's left is to wait for the main actors to take center stage. Chapter 19, To Stop a War. That's the casino. Hina pointed at the pyramid-shaped building with a crocodile perched at the top. The sun was just peeking out of the horizon as the three Marines made their way to the casino. The streets of the city was mostly empty this early in the morning, but for the casino that was never closed, there was still a large group of people present. No doubt some of these guys are Baroque Works agents, Smoker frowned, watching the people milling around the casino with their heads held low. Any changes in plans? Hina glanced at the Commodore. Negative, we storm in, Luffy grinned. I, the two captains grinned back in response, both of them cracking their knuckles. Luffy kicked open the door to the casino unceremoniously, startling the patrons inside. Crocodile! Get your ass out here! Luffy yelled. Three burly guards immediately advanced towards them, barring their way. I'm sorry, but you three will have to leave. No Marines are allowed here. The guard in the middle crossed his arms. Get out of our way, Smoker glared at the guard. The guard shook his head with a wicked grin. I'm afraid we can't do that, please remove yourselves from the premises. Crocodile is now suspected of illegal activities. To defend him would constitute you as a criminal as well. I suggest all of you to step down. Smoker furrowed his brows. Unfortunately, we still have our own job to do. Members of the government are barred from entering rain dinners. The guards remained where they were. Hina sighed as she dropped low and swept her leg at the guards' feet, passing her leg through them. The three guards only had time to squeak in surprise before they found themselves on the floor, both feet bound tightly with iron manacles. Hina victory, Hina grinned, making two peace signs with both hands. Crocodile. Luffy leapt over the struggling guards and charged into the casino. Hina stepped on the middle guard before entering the casino without a second glance back, flipping her hair over her shoulder. I warned you, Smoker frowned down at the guards, stepping over them to join the others. By now, most of the patrons who had some sense had already decided to leave the casino before the situation got any worse. The assistant manager of the place was already wringing his hands in frustration as Luffy leapt over tables and patrons alike, shouting out for Crocodile. He turned to the woman wearing the cowgirl outfit, desperation in his eyes. What should we do, Miss Manager? Miss All Sunday stifled a laugh while watching the Straw Hat Marine jump around the room. Tell them that Crocodile will be waiting for them in the VIP room. The assistant manager was taken aback by her words but scurried off to do as he was told. He stood apprehensively in front of Hina, figuring she would have been a better choice to tell the news rather than the one that was wrecking the place, let alone the other one with a face that was glaring at everyone. Air. Miss Marine? Mr. Crocodile awaits all of you in the VIP room. He gestured to the grand door at the end of the room with the words VIP nailed above it. Luffy, Smoker-kun, we got our target, Hina called out to the other two, pointing towards the door with a thumb. All right. Bring it on. Luffy yelled, already charging straight for the door. Let's go, Smoker chased after him without hesitation. So hasty. Hina sighed, running after them. As they ran through the door and into the corridor, the path split itself in two with a signboard in the middle. An arrow pointed to the left with the words VIP written above it and another arrow pointed in the other direction with the words Filthy Marines. Smoker, Hina, do I stink? Luffy sniffed himself. Both Marine captains raised an eyebrow. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't smoke at all, did I? Smoker frowned. You smell fine, Luffy, Hina tilted her head at him. Then I guess we're not filthy Marines, are we? Luffy pointed at the sign. Hina laughed while Smoker just face-palmed. This is a trap, obviously, what should we do? Smoker glanced at both paths. Go straight into it, of course, he was already expecting us, there's nothing else we can surprise him with right now. Luffy cracked his knuckles, running off to the direction the Filthy Marine's arrow pointed. Whatever you say, Luffy, Smoker sighed, chasing after the Commodore. Hina tired. Hina sighed as she was stuck with chasing after the two Marines again. They barely took 5 steps in before a trap door opened below their feet, plunging all 3 Marines into the cage right below them. Hina groaned as she pushed herself up from the ground, Hina embarrassed. I was already expecting a trap, but not a trapdoor of all things. TCH. It's a cage made of sea stone. Smoker frowned at the bars. Crocodile. Luffy yelled, spotting the Shichibukai sitting casually at the table at the other side of the bars. So you've come, Marines, like I thought you would, Crocodile smirked, swirling a glass of wine in his hand. Crocodile. So is it true you are the one who perpetrated the civil war? Hina glared at him. Black Cage Hina, how ironic for you to be the one stuck in the cage this time, Crocodile laughed. Hina gritted her teeth in annoyance, crossing her arms at him. Answer the question, you damn pirate, Smoker glared at him. Ha 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 ha. Yes, it's all true of course, I was the one who made the people rebel against their king. But that should be the least of your troubles, shouldn't it? Crocodile laughed. What? You think we can't get out of this cage? Luffy huffed. Ha 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 ha. The whole cage is made of sea stone. You devil fruit users will never escape out of there. In a few moments I will leave this place for Aliabarna while this room completely self-destructs, taking you 3 along with it. The 3 glanced at each other. Luffy was the only one among them that didn't have a devil fruit power. Why did he assume all of them had one? They shrugged and decided to just play along with it as their advantage for now. You won't get away with this, the princess has already brought news of your treachery to the king. Hina watched him carefully. Crocodile stood up and walked in front of their cage, a wicked smirk on his face. Oh, I've already prepared something for that. I believe you've already met my dear colleague, Mr. 2? What about it? Smoker glared at him. He will be the one who shall instigate the rebels to launch a full-scale rebellion by today, long before the princess or the king can get this news out to their people. Crocodile smirked wickedly. What do you even plan on achieving? Luffy clenched his fists. Ha 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 ha. Well, since you're all going to die anyway, I'll let you die knowing how much you failed to protect anything by coming here. Crocodile threw his head back to drain the last of his wine, tossing the empty glass over his shoulder. In a few moments, Mr. 2 will impersonate the king and antagonize the rebels. My agents infiltrated among the rebels would also make sure to rouse them enough to launch a full-scale assault on the capital. That's where the fun starts. Crocodile lit a cigar and puffed at them, causing Luffy to recoil to the back of the cage in disgust. Crocodile smirked at his reaction while Hina and Smoker stood protectively in front of Luffy, hiding him from view. As you might have guessed, I want this country for myself, but it wouldn't do if there's still people who want to free this country walking around, would it? Crocodile pinched his finger and thumb on his right hand suggestively. You wouldn't. Hina narrowed her eyes at him. Ha 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 ha. I would. Crocodile swept his arm in an exaggerated arc. Everyone who gathers at the palace will die today. I have already prepared a big enough bomb that will be shot from the clock tower once the rebels are close enough. Even the Marines that you've brought here will perish. Once everyone is dead, I can just tell the world government that all of you had died in this petty civil war and I had no relation to Baroque works from the start. Crocodile laughed maniacally. You would kill so many people just to get a single country? What do you seek to gain from a country that has been destroyed? Hina furrowed her brows. Countries can be rebuilt, and I will rebuild it with my own hands as the new king of Alabasta. Don't you see? All of you were doomed the moment you decided to help this worthless country. Mr. Zero, a voice called out from the stairs that led away from the room. Everyone turned to see Miss All Sunday descending the steps slowly, joining Crocodile at his side. We can leave now, Mr. 2 has already begun his mission with the rebels. Good, Crocodile turned back to the trapped Marines with a smirk. Well, sorry I couldn't keep you guys company any longer, but I think my pets would make great company too in my absence. Crocodile snapped his fingers and a few Bananawanis entered the room, growling at the cage. A part of the floor exploded upwards as well, sending a geyser of water spewing out to flood the room. You're a wanted criminal yourself. Hina narrowed her eyes at Miss All Sunday, recognizing her. Miss All Sunday smiled at her. I see my secret got found out after all. If it isn't too much to ask, please forget about my presence here. What are you doing siding with Crocodile? I can't see you gaining anything. Smoker crossed his arms. My protection from you dirty Marines, of course. Outlaws like us have to stick together after all. Ka ha 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 ha. Crocodile turned his back on them, walking towards a tunnel at the other side of the room. Now please, do enjoy all the water I can offer to you. Miss All Sunday stole a glance at the Straw Hat Marine. She still hasn't forgotten their exchange on board their ship. She looked over her shoulder to see Crocodile already at the entrance of the tunnel, not even looking back at them as he continued laughing to himself. Do you still think you can beat Crocodile? Miss All Sunday looked pointedly at Luffy. Of course. I'll break out of here in no time. Luffy grinned confidently. Good, it took a while for me to make up a devil fruit power for you to convince Crocodile. Miss All Sunday grinned with a glint in her eyes. Hina raised an eyebrow. Why would you do that? So that you guys can escape, of course. If you need proof of his treachery, all the papers you need are on the table in the office. It's through the door on the right of the staircase and inside a file. Miss All Sunday turned her back on them and walked off, not waiting for a reply. What the hell just happened? Smoker frowned. I promised her I'll help her kick Crocodile's ass. Luffy laughed. She's not a bad girl after all. Hina sighed at the Commodore's innocence. On a more important matter, how are we getting out of here? This whole cage is made of sea stone. Hina and I are useless in here. Luffy, Smoker nodded. They turned just as a huge Bananawani chomped its jaws down on the cage, only for its teeth to shatter without leaving a mark on the cage walls. Luffy glanced around the room, finding it empty except for the Bananawanis that were currently growling at them. These walls are harder than diamond. You think you can break us out? Smoker glanced at Luffy. Luffy placed his hand on one part of the wall, closing his eyes. He listened intently to the voice of the wall, opening his eyes when he finally found the spot he wanted. Not every part of it is made of sea stone, Luffy grinned. He walked to the side of the wall, lowering himself down to a stance and pulling his fist back. Without any warning, he punched his hockey-coated fist at the wall, creating a small circular hole where his fist had landed. Luffy stood aside to reveal his handiwork proudly to his colleagues. Smoker sighed, air. Yeah, Luffy. Hate to break it to you. But I don't think any of us can fit through that. Yes, Smoker, I can break diamonds. Grandpa taught me how to. Luffy grinned just as the wall behind completely collapsed to a pile of rubble. Have more faith in him, Smoker-kun, Hina laughed. Now let's get the papers and go. We already got what we came here for. Right, Smoker finally closed his gaping mouth to follow the two out of the cage. Should we use the tunnel to escape as well? Hina looked up at Luffy, who had just roundhouse kicked a Bananawani to the far end of the room. If that tunnel leads to Aliobarna, I guess it'll be faster for us to take it rather than running back. Luffy grinned, landing on his feet with a flourish, prepared to face the next one that came charging at him. I got the papers. It was all neatly filed too, like it was prepared for us or something. Smoker frowned at the papers he held in his hand. It seems she was already expecting us. This still seems too convenient. Hina took the papers from Smoker, flipping through them. It contained details on each and every one of Baroque Works' plans, their movements, their actions, and especially Crocodile's involvement. It was all the proof they need to bring him to justice. That woman did this, didn't she? Hina looked up at Luffy as he threw a Bananawani over his shoulders to crash into another of its brethren. He shrugged. I only know she doesn't like him either. I don't like this, getting help from a criminal of all people. Smoker crossed his arms. We'll talk about that later, unless you guys can swim out of here? Luffy pointed at the increasing water level. All the Bananawanis crumpled in an unconscious heap at one end of the room. TCH, let's get out of here. Smoker led the way to the tunnel, followed closely behind by Hina and laughing Luffy. Vivi and Nami arrived at Kantoria just as the sun was beginning to set. Vivi charged straight into the town, frantically looking around the place for her childhood friend and leader of the rebellion. Koza! Vivi shouted frantically, swiveling her head around the rebel base T. Oh, search for him. Isn't that Princess Vivi? A rebel nudged another. Princess Vivi? I thought she was missing. What is she doing here? She's looking for leader. Vivi stopped Karoo in front of a group of rebels who still had their mouths agape from seeing her among them. Where is Koza? Please, I need to talk to him, Vivi pleaded. Leader went to Nanohana. One of them stuttered helpfully. What? Why would he be there? Vivi frowned. The king showed up there a few moments ago. Apparently he was apologizing for stealing our rain. No. Vivi frowned. That definitely isn't my father. She reined Karoo around, dashing out of the town towards Nanohana, Nami following closely behind. Don't tell me. That's the fake? Nami asked, catching up to her. Vivi gritted her teeth, nodding her head. My father would never do this. This is definitely Mr. 2 impersonating as my father right now. I need to stop him before he does any more damage. Just as the two girls disappeared into the horizon to the confusion of the rebels, Pell descended from the sky and landed in a cloud of dust. Where's Princess Vivi? He demanded from the rebels. Pell the falcon. The rebels gasped. She just went to Nanohana. A rebel pointed in the direction of the dust cloud the ducks were kicking up. Pell frowned. Why would she be headed there? The king is there too. Another rebel stuttered, still not comprehending what was going on. What? Impossible. The king is traveling here right now. Pell furrowed his brows. He turned back into his falcon form and flew back to the direction where he had came from, searching for the king's entourage. As he thought, there was another cloud of dust quite a distance away heading straight for Cantoria. He was sent by the king to fly ahead of them to make sure Vivi was safe. Now he knew Crocodile had already put his plans into motion. Pell flew back to the group of horses that were galloping with all their might towards Cantoria, calling out to them with a screech. Where's Vivi, Pell? Cobra shouted up at him. She has left for Nanohana. Your imposter is there as well. We have to hurry. Zoro cursed under his breath. We're too late, huh? No. We can still make it to contain the damage. This war must not escalate any further. Turn towards Nanohana. Cobra yelled. The group reined in their horses and redirected them towards Nanohana. Pell. Make sure Vivi is safe. Cobra shouted at the flying falcon. As you command. Pell disappeared back into the sky with a mighty flap of his wings, speeding towards Nanohana. We'll expose that imposter if we can catch him there. Once everyone knows there's a fake king, this civil war will definitely end. Shaka gritted his teeth. Cobra sighed, if only it were that easy. I can only hope that the people's hatred of me does not run as deep as I fear. It's alright, we'll definitely convince the people of the truth. Usopp gave the king a thumbs up. Not if we can help it. A figure jumped out from the sand, lunging towards the king. Watch out. Chopper leapt up from his horse, turning into his human reindeer form. He shoulder-tackled Miss Merry Christmas away, both of them tumbling onto the sand. At the same time, Mr. 4 appeared from beneath the sand, holding a large cannon on his shoulders and taking aim at the king. Not on my watch. Sanji leapt from his horse towards the king just as Mr. 4 fired his cannon. He kicked the cannonball away with ease, landing on the sand with a flourish. Go! We'll take care of them! Chopper and Sanji shouted back. Zoro and Usopp both gave them a thumbs up before concentrating on following the king. What troublesome Marines! Because of you, we failed our mission. Miss Merry Christmas yelled. That's too bad for you then, we'll not have it any other way. You guys have heard Vivi-chan enough. Sanji lit a cigarette. We will not let you pass. Chopper stood beside Sanji, trying to be as intimidating as possible. Who the hell do you guys think you are to stand against Baroque works? Miss Merry Christmas frowned at them. We're Marines, both Sanji and Chopper grinned confidently. Whatever. We'll get rid of both of you and then catch up to the king again. Miss Merry Christmas burrowed back into the ground. What the hell is she? Sanji frowned. Chopper looked around him, finally noticing the holes that were spread out all over the place. She's definitely a devil fruit user. There's holes all over the ground. That Mr. 4 is gone too. Sanji gritted his teeth. A dog popped out from the ground suddenly, snot dripping out of his nose while he stared at them. A dog? Where did that come from? Sanji raised an eyebrow. Just as they puzzled over the sudden appearance of the dog, it sneezed at them and a ball shot out from its mouth, flying towards them. That's a baseball, isn't it? Chopper frowned. Looks like it, Sanji nodded his head. As the baseball neared them, Chopper pushed Sanji away without warning, leaping clear of the baseball. What the hell? Chopper? Sanji protested. I smell gunpowder in that ball. It's a bomb. As if on cue, the ball exploded at where the two had been standing before, sending balls of fire in every direction. Not bad avoiding that one, but you won't have a chance anymore. Miss Merry Christmas popped her head up from the ground. The dog sneezed again, sending the ball flying straight at them once more. Both Marines jumped out in opposite directions, letting the ball sail past them. Before they could rejoice, Mr. 4 popped out from the hole in front of the ball with his metal bat, swinging it in an arc to hit the ball back at Chopper. Chopper! Sanji barely had time to shout a warning as the ball exploded right in front of the doctor, enveloping him flames. Sanji made a dash for him just as he spotted another ball heading straight for him from the corner of his eye. He leapt out in front to avoid it, rolling on the ground as the ball exploded behind him. He reached Chopper just as the doctor pushed himself up, bleeding in a few places but relatively okay. The dog sneezed again, both Marines turning to spot the ball headed towards them. Don't underestimate me. I just have to take out the dog. Sanji jumped up and kicked at the ball, sending it flying back. The dog immediately dived back down into the hole before it was captured in the explosion. Those balls are heavy. Sanji shook his leg. Those are definitely not normal bombs. What should we do? Chopper glanced up at Sanji. Sanji frowned. We just need to make sure we keep them here long enough for the king to reach there safely. But I don't like getting pummeled either. You got a plan, Chopper? Chopper scratched his chin for a moment before bringing out a small yellow gumball for Sanji to see. This is a medicine that I managed to create by accident. It allows me to transform to even more forms. One of it will allow me to scope out their weakness, but I will need time to find it. The effects will only last 3 minutes though, Chopper said quickly. Sanji grinned, so I just have to cover you until you're done, right? Chopper nodded, swallowing the ball. Leave it to me. Sanji narrowed his eyes at the holes in the ground. Rumble, brain point. Chopper shrunk back to his half-reindeer size, pushing his hooves in front of him to form a triangular scope. I don't know what you're doing, but I won't let you finish it. Miss Merry Christmas jumped out from a hole near them. She had increased her size by 2 times while her mouth was elongated into a snout. The place where her fingers were had also transformed into sharp claws. Is that a penguin? Chopper widened his eyes. I'm a mole. I ate the mogu mogu fruit and became a mole human. Miss Merry Christmas yelled indignantly. She lunged towards Chopper with her claws, but Sanji stood in her way, kicking up to block her slash. I don't usually hurt ladies, but you most definitely don't look like a lady to me, you penguin. Sanji smirked. I'm a mole. Miss Merry Christmas lashed out at Sanji, who easily ducked under her blow. Miss Merry Christmas cursed as she dived back into one of the holes. The dog and Mr. 4 appeared again from different holes. The dog sneezed again, and this time a whole bunch of balls came flying out of its mouth at once. Shit! Sanji stared at the balls flying towards them. Sanji! Chopper glanced back at the cook. Just concentrate on what you can do. Trust me to protect you. Sanji yelled back. Chopper nodded and resumed his scoping. Party table kick course. Sanji got down on his hands and begun spinning, kicking out his legs at the balls that came flying over away from them. Mr. 4, however, had ducked back down into his hole and appeared near the balls that were kick-off course to hit them back towards them. Sanji cursed under his breath as he spun faster, frantically kicking away the balls again as they got close again. Sanji! I got it! All the holes are connected to each other. Chopper yelled out suddenly. Good job! Sanji grinned, pushing himself up into the air before he started to kick the bombs back into the holes instead. Chopper, get down! Sanji landed back on the ground before shielding the doctor from the ensuing explosion that blasted out from all the molehills, sending a huge cloud of dust into the air. You think that got them? Chopper stood up carefully, changing back to his half-human form. You bastards! Miss Merry Christmas walked out from the dust slightly burnt but still standing. F.O. Mr. 4 frowned at them. Now you've made us mad. I'll show you what happens when you mess with Baroque works. Miss Merry Christmas dived back down into the sand again, clawing her way towards the two Marines. Sanji leapt in front of Chopper to kick at the mole that was in the ground, but she dove back under before he could land a hit, appearing underneath Chopper. Got you! Miss Merry Christmas yelled triumphantly as she latched a hand on both of Chopper's legs. Chopper barely had time to yell in surprise as she started dragging him back the way she came, where Mr. 4 was standing with his bat ready. Chopper! Sanji started running towards them, but Miss Merry Christmas was moving faster than him. Chopper could only watch in horror as he got closer and closer to Mr. 4, their intentions were clear as day. Molehill 4th Road intersection. Mr. 4 swung his bat at Chopper's head just as Miss Merry Christmas reached them, only to feel absolutely no impact on the bat. Miss Merry Christmas looked up in confusion and realized the previously big-sized Chopper had shrunk himself back down to his small size, allowing him to avoid the bat swing. Almost forgot I could do this. Chopper wiped the sweat off his brow. Now, Chopper! Sanji leaped towards Mr. 4 while Chopper changed back to his human form. Chopper reached down with a hand to grab Miss Merry Christmas before throwing her up in the air, screaming. Rumble, arm point. Chopper's arms and shoulders increased heavily in muscle mass while his hands transformed back into hooves. Sanji started flipping over rapidly to gain speed as he fell towards the still confused Mr. 4. Miss Merry Christmas was flailing her arms in the air near him as she fell back down towards the ground. Chopper himself pulled his muscled arms behind him, standing at the place where Miss Merry Christmas would fall. Concasse. Sanji brought the heel of his foot down on Mr. 4's head with a satisfying crack, sending the shockwave through his whole body. Cocotii cross. Chopper punched out his two arms towards the falling Miss Merry Christmas, his hoofs split apart to form an X-shape imprint on her abdomen. Sanji flipped back to land beside Chopper as Mr. 4 collapsed on top of the dog, squashing it underneath his huge body. Moments later, the unconscious form of Miss Merry Christmas fell out from the sky, impacting on the ground in a cloud of dust. Well done, Sanji grinned. Praising me won't make me happy, you know? Jackass. Chopper turned back to his small form and started dancing happily. Sanji grinned as he took another puff of his cigarette. Let's go meet the others. Koza stared at the scene in front of him with disbelief. He never thought he would ever see this day. The king had just gave out the order to burn the port town to the ground, and the soldiers immediately started breaking down the stalls and wrecking the houses, kicking away anyone who tried to stop them. It's because of you my town has dried up. If only you don't exist. A small child shouted at the king, a hammer held in his hand. The king looked down at him with disdain as the child ran towards him, swinging his hammer wildly. The king pulled his leg back and kicked the child across the face with no remorse, sending him sprawling a few feet away on the floor. Every one of the villagers gasped while a woman went to the boy. I'll kill you. The boy shouted again, struggling against the woman who was restraining him. There was no regrets in the king's eyes as he watched his men wreck the town. What is the meaning of this, Cobra? Koza couldn't hold it back anymore, advancing towards the king furiously. I've come to apologize, of course, the king said simply. Shut up. What you're doing is insulting to everyone who believed you were innocent. Koza pointed an accusing finger at him. The king stretched out his hands, gesturing to the town around him. This drought was all caused by me. I was the one responsible for all the stuff. I said shut up. Koza ran to grab the king but was stopped by several royal guards who held him back. So many of us died still believing in you. They had never once suspected you of doing all those things. Don't you dare think you can defile the memory of those who died. Koza cried out at the man. Koza! A feminine voice shouted out from behind him. Koza shuddered. He would never mistake this voice for anyone else but her. Vivi? Koza turned, staring up at the princess who was riding towards him as fast as she could. Get away from there! She yelled. Koza stood rooted in shock. He remembered that the princess was still missing not so long ago. Why was she here then? Before he could decide on what to do, a gunshot rang out from his left. His pistol discharged its round at Vivi, hitting her in the shoulder and throwing her off Karoo. Vivi! Koza yelled, running towards where she had fallen. Nami leapt off her own duck and knelt beside the princess, cradling her in her arms. I'm fine. Vivi cried, clutching at her bleeding shoulder. Koza looked down at the girl, frowning. You're not fine. You got shot. Everyone turned towards the king who held a smoking pistol in his hands. Why did you shoot her? Koza demanded, standing in front of Vivi to shield her from the king. Because he's a fake. Vivi yelled loud enough for everyone to hear. That king in front of you is a fake that the Shichibukai crocodile has placed to spark off this civil war. We have been fighting a meaningless war from the start. Koza turned his head to look at her, taking a step back in shock. You accursed girl. The fake king frowned at her. He pointed the pistol at her again, cocking the gun as everyone was still reeling in from Vivi's words. Another gunshot rang out as the gun was fired again. There was a loud screech in the sky as Pell descended from above, landing right in front of Vivi and deflecting the bullet with his sword. Princess Vivi! You're hurt! Pell blared at the fake group of royal guards. I'm fine, Pell, what are you doing here? Vivi demanded. The king was attacked last night, then we found your letter and followed you here. Pell stood protectively in front of her, watching the fake king carefully. Papa was attacked? Vivi gasped. Where is he? Nami frowned. Pell furrowed his brows as all the fake royal guards began surrounding the fake king. His Majesty is on his way here right now. We're here to stop this civil war with you. Wait. No. You're saying that all of this war, everything, was all a setup? Koza breathed, not believing his ears. Oh phooey, and I thought I could finish this without killing everyone, the fake king sighed, touching his face with his left hand to change back to Mr. 2. Every villager gasped at the sight, shocked that the king in front of them had just changed into an Okama. You? Who are you? Koza demanded, drawing out his sword from his back. Just a passing Okama. Mr. 2 sang happily, doing a ballerina twirl on the spot. Koza, Vivi gasped, standing up on unsteady legs. Everything was set up by Crocodile, we have to stop the war. Koza frowned at the Okama. I understand now, Vivi. I was wrong. Oh punsies, because of this, I have to kill all of you now to cover up my failure. Maybe your deaths would be a better catalyst to escalate the war. What do you think, men? Mr. 2 laughed. Great idea, Mr. 2 Bon Curii. The fake guards shouted in unison. All of them drew their rifles to point at the small group in front of them. Pell. Take them and leave. The princess has to live. Koza yelled, stepping in front of the royal guard captain. No. I won't leave without you, Koza. Vivi protested. There's no time, Vivi. Koza yelled, charging towards the guards. Exploding star. Usopp yelled, releasing a bunch of exploding bullets towards the guards. Each of his bullets hit their rifles with precision, shattering their guns in their hands. Vivi. What's going on here? You're hurt. Cobra rode into the square on his horse. King Cobra. Your Majesty. So it's true. We trusted you all this time. The villagers cried out. Papa. Vivi ran to her father. The king is here? That means Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas failed. Mr. 2 cursed. All my great acting for nothing. Zoro, Usopp and Shaka drew out their weapons and charged the fake guards alongside Koza, subduing them easily before they could even make sense of what had happened. Give it up, Mr. 2, your organization's plans were doomed to fail. Usopp aimed his slingshot at him. You're the Marines I met. How cruel fate is. Mr. 2 wiped the tears away sadly. It seems we cannot avoid fighting each other. Koza, I beg of you, we need to stop this meaningless war. Vivi grasped at Koza's hand. Koza hesitated, glancing back at the others who stood to protect them. Go! We'll take care of them, save your country. Nami shouted at them, standing beside her crew to face Mr. 2. Vivi nodded quickly, dragging off a protesting Koza and Cobra after her to Kantoria. You guys aren't going? Zoro raised an eyebrow at Shaka and Pell. Shaka transformed into his half-jackal form. We shall not rest until we bring the people who dared harm our country to justice. And here I wondered what kept you from giving us the signal to do our job. A woman with curly blue hair sashayed into the square. Followed closely behind her was a tan man who wore a sleeveless dark coat that bared his muscular chest with a white sash tied over his pants. He had an extremely displeased look on his face as he saw the state of the square. Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 2 looked at the two with disdain. Such incompetence, Mr. 2. Couldn't you take care of one measly job? Mr. 1 frowned at the Marines that stood in front of them. It's not my fault Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas failed theirs. Mr. 2 protested, puffing his chest. Mr. 1 sighed, cracking his knuckles, I guess we'll just have to finish them off ourselves. Pell, Shaka. Evacuate the civilians. We will hold them off. Zoro tied his bandana on his head. We can't let you fight them alone. Shaka protested. Your country's people are more important. Get them to safety. Nami smacked the two Royal Guard captains on their backs. Pell frowned, we'll rejoin you when we can. Both Royal Guard captains started herding the villagers away from the square towards safety. Give it up, Baroque works. You have failed. Usopp pointed a finger at them. We'll make this quick, there's still time to salvage this, Mr. 1 sighed, scratching his shaven head. And I wanted to play with them a little too, Miss Doublefinger smirked. The big guy, Zoro bit down on the sword in his mouth. The bitch, Nami stuck her tongue out. Mr. 2. Usopp frowned. Both sides charged at each other amidst the rubble of the town. Chapter 20, To End a War. A few hours before Luffy sets off to find Crocodile. Hey Nami, Usopp knocked lightly on their navigator's room. When no response came, Usopp knocked again, a little louder this time. There was a soft bump before a muffled "what is it?" can be heard from the other side of the door. Usopp scratched his head, not sure if coming so early was a good idea. I got the thing you wanted ready, you might want to take a look at it. Nami flung the door open without warning, panting as though she had just ran a marathon, startling Usopp. Where is it? Let me see. Nami squealed excitedly, reaching both her hands out to receive it. Usopp sighed as he pulled out 3 metal rods from his bag, handling them with extra care. He brought up each one to show her before placing them in her hands. This one produces a cold air bubble when you blow into it, this one would produce a hot one, and this one makes a bubble with a little bit of electrical discharge, Usopp explained. I call it the Climatact. Thanks Usopp. Now I don't need to feel so useless anymore. Nami grinned, eyeing her new weapon excitedly. Usopp wagged a finger at her as a warning, I would advise you test them out first before using them, I don't actually know how to use them practically myself. Hee, alright, Nami grinned, closing the door on him. Usopp scratched his chin, He wondered why Nami's hair seemed to be a little messier than usual and her clothes seemed a little bit off, but quickly decided it wasn't his problem. Nami took out her new weapon from underneath her cloak, grasping two parts of it in her right hand while the last one was held in her left. Nami! Cover! Zoro grunted, swinging both his swords in an arc. Usopp, I need some fire! Nami shouted at the sniper while Zoro rushed ahead to meet the charging Mr. 1. You got it! Flame Star! Usopp fired a flaming bullet towards Mr. 1 that exploded outwards in a wall of flames. Mr. 1 emerges from the flames unscathed, brushing away the embers as though they were nothing, not slowing down his charge towards the Marines. Today's forecast, a little bit of fog, Nami smirked, swinging the staff that created cold air bubbles towards the fire. Almost instantly, a huge cloud of fog covered the entire square, blanketing everyone in the white mist. How troublesome, but you guys can't see us either, right? Miss Doublefinger smirked, readying herself for any surprise attacks. Usopp! I need a guide! Zoro yelled over his shoulder, disappearing into the mist where Mr. 1 was last spotted. Usopp grinned as he pulled down his goggles, adjusting its magnification to focus on the shadowy figures deep within the mist. Egg Star! Usopp released 3 projectiles one after the other in rapid succession, hitting all 3 of his targets with deadly accuracy. Oh phooey! What is this repulsive odor? Mr. 2 yelled out indignantly, trying his best to flick off the offending liquid. Zoro grinned as he closed his eyes, fully concentrating on his sense of smell. He knew Luffy could navigate through this fog without a hitch, but he was not at that level himself yet. He lashed out the sword on his right towards the man he knew that was in front of him. Zoro frowned when his sword met with resistance. Your killing intent is too obvious, Mr. 1 huffed. Even if I can't see you, I can still feel where your attacks are coming from. Zoro furrowed his brows. You blocked my sword, are you a swordsman too? Mr. 1 let out a smirk. Hardly, I just ate the supa fruit. I'm a blade man. A man that can deflect my swords with his body, how interesting, Zoro grinned, pushing himself away from Mr. 1. You may be better than the average Marine, but unless you can cut through iron, you will never be able to leave a scratch me. Mr. 2 stretched out his arms in a gesture. Zoro drew out his last sword to put in his mouth. I accept that challenge. The Marine swordsman lunged forward again, slashing out all his swords at the agent. Sparks could be seen flying in the fog every time the two clashed against each other. Mr. 2! Usopp shouted from the roof of a building. He had taken advantage of the earlier confusion to sneak himself to a better vantage point. Mr. 2 looked up, barely able to make out Usopp's figure through the fog. I do not wish to fight you, but I will if you continue to resist. Please surrender. Usopp aimed his slingshot at Mr. 2. It was clear he had no desire to fight one whom he had thought was a friend. It is regretful, but we both stand on 2 different sides. Even the power of friendship cannot prevent this encounter. I'm afraid we will have to fight. Mr. 2 yelled back, leaping up from the fog. Usopp gritted his teeth and released a lead ball towards Mr. 2. Mr. 2 twirls in the air like a dancer would and kicked the projectile away, taking another leap towards Usopp. Usopp frowns and releases a torrent of exploding stars at Mr. 2, exploding against his kicks and sending him back into the fog. That's dirty. Mr. 2 whined. Usopp loaded his slingshot without hesitation. All is fair in war. Even if we may be friends, I won't allow you to continue to harm this country. Mr. 2 frowned. So be it, we shall fight for our own beliefs. Mr. 2 tried to kick towards Usopp again, but Usopp manages to keep him from reaching the roof with his barrage. So it looks like it's you and me, Miss Doublefinger smirked, appearing a few feet in front of Nami. Nami held her staff confidently, swinging it in between them. It seems so, but you should take care not to underestimate me. Miss Doublefinger let out a laugh. What can you do? You're just a powerless girl. I was, Nami corrected. I didn't join the Marines to stay weak, I have things I want to protect now. Big words from someone with no power. Miss Doublefinger lunged towards Nami without warning, spikes protruding out from her hands to stab at her. Miss Doublefinger laughed triumphantly when the spikes pierced through Nami's head, shoulder, and abdomen. The joy was cut short when Nami immediately fizzled out of existence. I told you not to underestimate me, Nami wagged her finger at the agent. You? What devil fruit is that? Miss Doublefinger glared at Nami. Nami grinned, I don't need a devil fruit to beat you. Miss Doublefinger hissed at the Marine and lunged at her again, going for a spiked shoulder tackle. She gasped when her tackle met with no resistance as the Marine fizzled out right before her eyes again, sending her sprawling onto the ground. That's an interesting ability you have, it's the spike thing fruit, isn't it? I did some research about it, Nami grinned, appearing behind her again. What manner of witchcraft is this? Miss Doublefinger clenched her fists. Nami let out a small pout. It's not witchcraft, you uncultured girl, it's using the weather as your weapon. Nami swung her staff in an arc and the fog seemed to thicken around Miss Doublefinger, hiding Nami from view. You told me not to underestimate you, perhaps you should do the same. Miss Doublefinger yelled, crouching down on the ground and flinging her arms wide. Spikes exploded out from her body in all directions, piercing through everything around her. At least one of these would hit you. Miss Doublefinger yelled triumphantly. There was a soft giggle that came from her left. I already told you I already know about your ability, you can't really surprise me anymore. Nami laughed, standing a few inches away from the spikes. Vivi had given her all the information she had gathered about the other agents before. Nami herself had also managed to get her hands on a book that detailed about most known devil fruits. She knew the approximate range of Miss Doublefinger's spikes and their strengths and weaknesses. Nami swung her staff once more, gathering a bunch of cold and hot air bubbles around her. The fog thickened before slowly lifting up into the air, briefly granting Miss Doublefinger a glance of Nami. What is it now? Giving up? Miss Doublefinger retracted her spikes before standing up. Hardly, Nami smirked. Have you ever been struck by lightning? Miss Doublefinger raised an eyebrow at the sudden question. Can't say I have. Then you can say you do now, Nami grinned, tossing the last part of her staff in the air. Miss Doublefinger watched the staff disappear into the cloud that formed above her head with a gasp, watching the cloud turn into a menacing black. Before she could even comprehend what was happening, a bolt of lightning flashed down towards her. Miss Doublefinger screamed as she felt millions of volts of electricity course through her body, frying her afro to stand on end. Miss Doublefinger collapsed onto the floor after a while, smoke drifting out from her mouth. That's one down, Nami grinned, catching her falling staff with a flourish, giving a mock curtsy towards her imaginary audience. She turned her head to see how the others were doing. The fog had already dissipated when she had used it to form her clouds. Zoro and Mr. One were still locked in combat, both of them trying to cut each other with little success. Usopp was still stuck on the rooftop, but Mr. Two had no way to reach him without being hit by the multiple projectiles Usopp shot his way. Zoro raised the sword in his right hand just in time to catch the falling left arm of Mr. One, pushing the agent's slash away from him. He furrowed his brows as he leapt back immediately when Mr. One kicked his right foot upwards in an attempt to cut across his chest, missing by mere inches. Zoro slashed out both swords in his hands at Mr. One's unprotected back, grunting in frustration as his swords bounced off harmlessly on his back. You might as well just give up, Marine, mister. One said offhandedly as he kicked towards Zoro again. You're only wasting both our time. Zoro said nothing as he ducked under the kick, slashing at the agent's other leg, still unsuccessful in cutting him. Zoro leapt backwards just as Mr. One brought his leg down to smash into the ground where Zoro had been moments before. He cracked his knuckles as he stared down the Marine with disdain. Enough with your pathetic struggling, unless you can cut through iron, you can never hurt me. Zoro gritted his teeth as he held his swords by his side, glaring at the man standing before him. Damn it, what was this breath thing that Luffy was talking about again? Flashback. Oi, Luffy, Zoro called out to the Commodore that sat on the figurehead of Mary without a care in the world. Luffy tilted his head back to look at his swordsman with a quizzical stare. How did you even find us in the middle of all that steam? Zoro leaned against the railing, crossing his arms. Is it another one of that hockey thing? Luffy let out a huge grin as he chuckled. Yep. It's called observation hockey. It lets you see the breadth of all things. Breadth of all things? Zoro tilted his head at the Commodore. Aha, everything has its own breath that you can find with observation haki. When I was in the steam, all I had to do was to listen to the ships and I could find it easily. Zoro scratched his chin thoughtfully, so it's used for finding things you can't see? Something like that. Luffy scratched his head. There was also the thing about predicting your opponent's moves, but he decided it was not that important. So what else can this be used for? Zoro looked at Luffy expectantly. Luffy looked up at the sky, not really in the mind of explaining everything since he wasn't really sure about it himself. I guess you can find the weak spots of things, Luffy said finally. Zoro raised an eyebrow. Like, if you could feel their breath, you can easily find the flow of their energy or something. Ah. I don't really understand it myself, but you would understand if you use it. Luffy scratched his head in embarrassment. So how do I get it? Continue to put myself in more danger? Zoro grunted. That's one way, but for observation haki, you'll have to improve all your senses by quite a bit. I trained mine by fighting blindfolded. I see. Zoro nodded attentively. Luffy laughed at his serious face. Just get stronger, it'll come to you eventually, shishishi. Zoro crossed his swords just in time to catch Mr. One's chop, inches away from his face. Damn it! What breath and energy! I don't understand any of this. I only know how to cut things. Such futile attempts. Mr. One frowned as he punched at the center of Zoro's crossed blades, sending him crashing into the building behind him. Zoro! Usopp and Nami yelled out simultaneously. It's new a time to be looking elsewhere, funsies. Mr. Two kicked at Nami, who barely had time to duck underneath it. Your opponent is Nii. Mr. Two sang, twirling backwards to avoid another projectile that Usopp shot towards him. Usopp! Let's take this guy out first. Nami shouted, brandishing her staff threateningly in front of her. I got it. Usopp pulled out a bunch of bullets from his pouch, keeping his eyes on Mr. Two. Oh? Isn't this a little tad bit unfair? Ganging up on poor me? Mr. Two whined, though his guard remained up. Usopp! I'll need some time. Nami shouted, breaking apart her staff and creating the bubbles she needed. Usopp didn't hesitate and immediately launched 3 fire stars that exploded into a small wall of flames around Mr. Two. Unperturbed, Mr. Two leapt over the flames with the grace of a ballerina, landing with a small twirl outside the fire. I wonder, would you have the heart to attack one of your own? Mr. Two giggled. With a small twirl, he immediately changed himself into Zoro, albeit with his ridiculous grin still plastered on his face. Ha ha ha. How is this? You guys can't bear hurting one of your own, right? You can't beat me. Mr. Two laughed maniacally. Lead star. Usopp's projectile hit Mr. Two squarely in between the eyes, sending him sprawling backwards on the floor. He sat up on his haunches, clutching at his face as he turned himself back. How heartless! How can you attack one of your own friends? Usopp grinned, pulling his slingshot back without hesitation. As long as we know it's still you, we don't need to hesitate. Mr. Two furrowed his brows as he jumped up to avoid the exploding star Usopp shot out. Then how about I sow a little bit of confusion then? Mr. Two laughed to himself, changing his face once again. He did another ballerina twirl before he changed himself into Usopp, all the while still laughing to himself. Now I wonder who is the real one. Can you tell us apart? Mr. Two stood haughtily with his hands on his hips, laughing at Nami. Both Marines' sweat dropped at him. You do know he's still up there, right? Nami pointed a finger at the roof Usopp was standing on. Mr. Two looked up at the roof, spotting the Marine sniper staring back at him incredulously. Nami tilted her head at him. Even if you change into him, you're still down here. Not really that hard to figure out who's the fake, you know? Mr. Two knelt down on the ground and began crying out tears of shame. Last chance, Mr. Two. Please give up. Usopp shouted out. Never. Mr. Two spun around, changing back to his original form before lunging towards Nami. Nami threw herself to the side, barely avoiding the kick that sailed over her head. Nami tried to push herself up but found Mr. 2 standing over her, his foot raised high in the air. Akucho arabesque. Mr. 2 kicked straight towards Nami, aiming for her head. Nami barely had time to raise her staff in defense before the kick broke through the middle section of her staff, sending her flying back towards a wall. Nami gasped out in pain as she felt pain rock through her body like lightning, collapsing on the ground. "Ha ha 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 ha. I knew you were one of the weakest among the crew. Neither of you can hope to fight me evenly." Mr. 2 laughed. Usopp cursed as he released the exploding stars he had loaded in his slingshot, aiming to disable the Okama. Mr. 2 just laughed even louder as he pirouetted away from where Usopp had shot his bullets, letting them explode harmlessly on the ground. "Ha ha 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 ha. It will only be a matter of time before you run out of bullets to shoot. Then it will be over for you, Marine." Mr. 2 laughed again. Usopp furrowed his brows. The Okama was right, of course, he had already used most of his bullets to keep him occupied, he could not afford to waste any more if he could help it. Nami groaned as she pushed herself off the floor, holding on to her 2 remaining staff parts. "Nami! Are you all right?" Usopp yelled out in relief. "I'm fine." Nami wheezed, gripping tightly to her weapon. She was only left with the shock and cold bubble parts. Still able to stand? How surprising, Mr. 2 smirked at her. Nami gritted her teeth, glaring at the Okama that was spinning in front of her. "It's true that I was weak. When my village was terrorized by pirates, I could do nothing but watch them hurt the people I cared about." Nami spun the cold staff in her hand, creating a bunch of cold bubbles around her, ignoring the pain that came with that action. "But that was in the past. I have people who would support me and help me become stronger now. I won't remain as the weak one anymore. I'll protect what I want with my own hands." Mr. 2 frowned at her, big words coming from a girlie like you. "What can you do here? We can beat you." Usopp shouted, shooting another exploding star. Mr. 2 barely had time to jerk back his head to avoid the projectile, covering his face to avoid the heat that came with the explosion. He noticed that his clothes felt stickier than before and the air felt more humid after the explosion. "Usopp!" Nami yelled, running towards the agent with her last staff held in her hand. Usopp said nothing as he lined up his slingshot once more, firing a small projectile at the Okama. "Useless!" Mr. 2 yelled out, kicking at the bullet Usopp had shot in an attempt to send it back to him. The projectile exploded the moment his foot touched it, sending its liquid contents crashing down on top of the Okama. Mr. 2 could only splutter in shock as he tumbled back from surprise, sitting on the floor with a soft thump as the remains of the water balloon splattered on the floor. Nami let out a yell as she stabbed her shock bubble staff into the back of Mr. 2, snapping it cleanly in half. A large discharge of electricity immediately exploded out from the shattered staff, shocking both Nami and Mr. 2. Mr. 2 screamed out in pain as he felt torrents of electricity wreck through his body. Nami could feel the pain shock up her arm as well as she gritted her teeth and braved through it with her will. When the staff finally ran out of power, smoke was drifting out from Mr. 2's body and Nami could not feel her right arm that had held the staff. "You?" Mr. 2 began, trying to turn around to grab the Marine navigator. "Never call me weak again." Nami kicked him across the head with her right foot, catching him across the temple and smashing him into the ground, unconscious. Nami found herself panting heavily as her right arm hung by her side, numb from the show. CK. At least she didn't get the worst of it, she thought while looking down at the smoking Mr. 2. Well, I guess that was a rather shocking experience. Usopp commented, joining Nami by her side. He was mostly unscathed, though it seems he had a few bruises from where Mr. 2 had managed to kick back a few of his projectiles. Before Nami could respond, the building to their left suddenly collapsed, revealing a rather badly cut up Zoro still locked in combat with Mr. 1. Zoro! Nami and Usopp rushed towards him, intending to aid him. Stop! Don't come here! Zoro yelled, shoving Mr. 1 away from him. I'll handle him! Go find those guard captains and find Vivi. This bastard said there are agents among the rebels as well. Usopp swallowed, but. You're. No buts. Just go. This is my fight. Protect the king and princess. Zoro leapt aside just as Mr. One slashed out his hands, cutting through the building behind him with ease. TCH. Usopp, let's go. Nami grabbed onto the sleeve of Usopp's marine cloak and pulled him along, turning her back on the fight. But Zoro's hurt. Usopp protested. Nami glanced over her shoulder. He'll be fine, he won't fall to a guy like him. Now let's go before we're too late. Nami broke into a run, ignoring the pain that stabbed at her with each step she took. Usopp chanced another glance back at the struggling swordsman before breaking into a run after Nami as well. Mr. One watched the other two Marines disappear around a corner before turning back to regard the bleeding swordsman. You should have taken their help, there's no way for you to beat me alone. Not that their help would have mattered anyway. Zoro snorted at his words, I can deal with you myself, there's no need for their help. Mr. One raised his hands, turning them into blades, it's your death, Marine. He spun his arm at the Marine swordsman, attempting to cut across his chest. Zoro gritted his teeth as he raised a sword to block the slash. Zoro planted a kick in Mr. One's chest, pushing him away from him. Without hesitation, Zoro lowered himself in his stance. Onigiri. Zoro slashed past the blade man with all his might, frowning when he felt the metallic resistance that he had already grown accustomed to throughout this long battle. Mr. One turned around while brushing his chest as though getting rid of some dust. You might as well just give up now, you've already tried so many times, aren't you tired? Zoro blared at the agent, I've already managed to hit you a number of times. If I can just cut you, you'll already be finished. If you can cut me, Mr. One let a smirk cross his face. Zoro furrowed his brows at the agent's words. I just need to cut him. I just need to cut through iron. Zoro tightened his grip on his swords before lunging towards the blade man without warning. Mr. One raised up his hand and smacked the opposing blade away lazily, looking down on the Marine swordsman that still refused to give up. Zoro didn't relent on his failed lunge as he used his momentum to spin around and slash out the sword in his other hand, catching Mr. One across the chest. Zoro gritted his teeth in frustration as he felt his sword rebound against the agent's iron skin, forcing him to leap back from him just as Mr. One lashed out his arm. I'll have to applaud your tenacity, I'd have thought you to be dead by now. Mr. One tilted his head at him casually. Zoro didn't answer as he gripped his swords once more, glaring at the agent in front of him. Mr. One lowered his stance, but I think I've played with you long enough. Zoro brought his swords up in a guard as Mr. One brought both his wrists together with his palms facing Zoro. He charged at the Marine without warning, slamming his palms on Zoro's swords. Sparkling Daisy. Zoro felt several cuts along his shoulders and sides as he pushed against the lunge with all his might. The building behind him collapsed as it was decimated with Mr. One's cuts. Zoro felt his knees buckle as he fought to stay standing, blaring at the agent all the while. You have good eyes, Mr. One remarked, staring back at Zoro with his usual impassiveness. Eyes that are suited more for killing, pity you chose the life of a Marine. I choose my own occupations, Zoro spat, shoving Mr. One back roughly. Mr. One brushed dust off his arms, you should have just taken our offer to join our organization, things would have been so much more easier. Zoro grinned as he pointed a sword at the agent, sorry, your organization's too boring for me, I'll die of boredom within the week. Not to mention the companions I'll have to be with are too full of themselves. Mr. One narrowed his eyes at the Marine, his mouth curling into the barest of frowns. Without any warning, Mr. One lunged forward with his right arm pointed at Zoro, the tips of his fingers outstretched and aiming for his throat. Zoro flicked the sword in his right hand outwards to deflect the hand away, twisting his body with the motion to slash at Mr. One's exposed back with the swords in his left hand and mouth. Mr. One did not even flinch as he took the blow on his back, only taking a step forward from the impact before spinning on one leg to kick upwards at Zoro. Zoro jerked his head back before slashing out his right hand at Mr. One's stationary leg, the sword bouncing off the leg with a resounding clang. Zoro barely had time to leap backwards as Mr. One chopped his arm at where the Marine's neck had been moments ago. Without wasting time, Zoro leapt forwards once more, his swords held at his sides. Tatsumaki! Zoro slashed out his swords, creating a miniature tornado of blades that smashed into Mr. One. Mr. One lowered himself and lunged through the tornado, bursting out in front of Zoro. The Marine barely had time to raise his guard before the agent swung both his arms in front of him. Spar break! Zoro felt the world go black around him for a moment, barely registering himself falling onto the floor. Mr. One landed on both his feet just as the building behind Zoro exploded out in a storm of slashes, collapsing in itself. Such a shame, Mr. One commented dryly, not even sparing a glance at the prone swordsman as he walked away from him. Zoro felt the edges of his vision go dark, his body unfeeling. He could already feel the blood spilling out from the various cuts on his body, his life draining slowly away. BAS, Tard. Zoro spat out weakly, slowly pushing himself up. His arms burned from the exertion, threatening to give way. His body groaned in protest as he felt of his muscles strain just to keep him on his feet. Mr. One turned to see Zoro still standing weakly, gripping onto his swords with the last of his strength. If you were smart, you would have just laid down quietly instead, Mr. One sighed. Mr. One brought up his arms and broke into a charge towards the Marine, aiming to end him quickly. The Marine swordsman tensed slightly, knowing he would not last beyond the next hit. He let out a breath and let himself calm, ignoring the constant pain his body was in. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as Zoro watched the agent charge towards him. Zoro could feel each of his muscles tense slightly as he felt his senses go into overdrive. His eyes flickered around, as if seeing everything for the first time, taking in everything he saw carefully. The world seemed a little bit brighter and clearer, though colors seemed a little saturated. Is this what hockey feels like? Zoro wondered, still taking in the new experience. He could feel the air brushing against his skin, hear the straining of Mr. One's every muscle as he leapt towards him. Somehow, Zoro knew if he wanted to, he could avoid the blow. Well, it's either that or I'm dying. Zoro laughed to himself humorlessly. He snapped himself back to attention as Mr. One's arms neared his throat, inches away from piercing him with his sharp fingers. Zoro deftly stepped aside, ignoring the protests of his already straining body. Mr. One spun on a leg, spinning his right arm back towards Zoro's chest. Zoro could hear it coming before Mr. One even completed his spin, taking another small step back to avoid it. Not pausing, Mr. One kicked upwards on his free leg, aiming for the Marine's throat again. He furrowed his brows when Zoro only tilted his head to the side to avoid it, both of his eyes closed. The agent slammed his foot downwards, trying to get Zoro on the shoulder, but Zoro sidestepped that as well, eyes still closed. Furious, Mr. One raised his arm and delivered a flurry of stabs, chops and lunges at the Marine, only for all of it to meet empty air as Zoro swayed side to side, carefully avoiding most of the blows. Of the ones he could not avoid, Mr. One only managed to deal very shallow cuts that didn't seem to faze the Marine in the slightest bit. How? How are you still able to do this? You're practically bleeding to death now. Mr. One muttered, stepping back from the Marine. Zoro said nothing as he stretched out the sword in his left, slashing it upwards at Mr. One. Mr. One raised an arm to block it, fully intent on lunging once he deflected the blade away. Instead, the sword continued on its path unobstructed, just as Mr. One felt a trickle of pain crawl up his arm. He looked at his arm in confusion, finding a small cut that stretched from his elbow to his wrist. While Mr. One was still comprehending the impossible, Zoro let a small smile cross his face. I understand now, Luffy. I hear it. Zoro finally opened his eyes to watch the agent carefully, pointing the sword in his left hand at him. I can cut you. Zoro said it so simply as though it was an obvious fact, a fact that seemed impossible not so long ago. Mr. One furrowed his brows, it seems so. But it still doesn't change the fact that you're already half dead. Zoro let out a humorless chuckle. You have let yourself grow complacent, haven't you realized that? What do you mean? Mr. One frowned. Zoro lowered himself into his stance. Now that I can cut you, you have no defense against my blades. There's no way for you to not get cut. Mr. One's eyes widened in realization just as Zoro lunged at him. The agent brought up his arms instinctively to block the attack, only to have his arms cut by the swords. Mr. One could only watch helplessly as Zoro brought down the sword in his mouth across his chest, leaving a slash from his right shoulder down to his left hip. Without hesitation, Zoro settled into his most familiar stance, ignoring the strain his body was already being put through, knowing full well that he shouldn't even be standing in his current state. Onigiri. Zoro slashed out all three of his swords at once, coating each of his three swords in blood. Mr. One gritted his teeth in pain, knees buckling under his weight as he fell for the first time in the battle. He tilted his head backwards to look at the marine swordsman sheathing his swords calmly. "Ha! Seems like I really underestimated you." Mr. One let out a grin. "Now I guess I'm paying the price for that." Zoro grinned back at the agent, "Thanks to you for making me stronger." "Ha! So what are you going to cut next? Diamond? What makes you think I can't do it now?" Zoro looked back. "Ha! It's my loss." Mr. One collapsed face first on the ground, unmoving. Zoro took a chance to look up at the sky. "Am I closer to your expectations now, Luffy?" Moments later, he too collapsed in a heap, just as the shadow of a large falcon descended in between the two. Vivi was standing apprehensively beside Koza, the latter doing his best to convince the rebels of the trickery that they had been subjected to and to put a stop to the meaningless rebellion. "This war has gone on for long enough. Too many people have suffered and many lives have been lost to this trickery. Many of us had faith in our king and we always believed he was innocent of these heinous crimes. Now is the time to put this wrong to right." Koza swept his arm outwards dramatically. All of the rebels had their eyes on him, eyes darting occasionally at the princess and the king that flanked him on either side. A man with a scar across his face stepped forward, pointing an accusing finger at the king. "It still doesn't change the fact that there's a drought because of you. We have been tricked." Koza gritted his teeth in frustration, knowing he had been a victim of this trickery as well. The king had always been innocent from the start. He was framed by others who had sought to destroy this country. "Lies." The scarred man spat angrily. "Nothing but fancy tales this fake king has told to convince us of his innocence." This time the king stepped forward. "My people, all of you have the right to hate me as I was powerless to prevent the disaster from happening. All this time I had never stepped forward to claim my innocence due to one reason, my lack of evidence. Without it, it would only be seen as a convenient lie that other parties might use to destroy our country. And why should we believe you now?" Another man with a sharp face waved his sword menacingly at the king. "Because I've seen their plans," Vivi pleaded. "The time I had gone missing was actually spent infiltrating this organization that planned the downfall of our country." There were murmurs of surprise among the rebels, some doubtful about her claims but most agreed she was telling the truth. "This organization calls itself Baroque Works and it was the reason for this war," Vivi continued without hesitation. "They were the ones who had planted the dance powder in our country to bring about our ruination just so they can put themselves in positions of power once we have destroyed each other." This brought angry shouts from some rebels, wanting to seek out this new enemy and bring justice to them. The scarred face man, however, didn't agree. "You're lying. You have no proof that such an organization exists. You probably disappeared just to escape the civil war." This sparked off a shouting match amongst the rebels, some of them defending Vivi while others agreeing with the scarred face man. "It doesn't matter anymore," Cobra shouted, silencing the rebels. "What matters now is that we don't bring this country any further into ruin. If all of you wish it, I would abdicate the throne to save it." Everyone gasped in shock at the king's words. "No!" Koza grabbed Cobra by his collar, pulling him to face him. "Don't you dare say that now. Not after what we've been through." The rebel leader turned to face the now sullen rebels. "We started this war for a reason. Many of you followed me because we shared the same feelings back then, but it seems some of us have lost sight of our goal." Koza looked at each of the rebels that stood in front in the eye. Some looked back at him proudly while others looked away and shuffled their feet guiltily. "We started this war not because we wanted vengeance, not for justice and neither for the rain that was stolen from us. We fought this war because we believed we did it to save this country from ruin. Koza swept his arms in an arc, gesturing to all of the rebels. Now we all know the truth. If we go any further than we already have, this country will be destroyed by our own hands instead. Koza gritted his teeth as he gestured to the king. While I was at Nanohana where we had reports of the king appearing there, we found instead someone who had the power to transform himself into the king. Vivi swore the collective gasp from the rebels could have sucked the rain from the sky. A short woman who was missing her left arm stepped forward hesitatingly. Even so, leader. Even if we agree to end the war, I fear many of us won't be satisfied unless a concrete resolution was reached. Koza nodded sagely, as though he had already expected it, the destruction of Baroque works and bringing justice to these criminals who dared try to destroy our country. A number of rebels smiled at the suggestions, but the scarred-faced man immediately shouted out in protest, "Tea is not enough. We were ready to throw our lives to bring down this crooked king. We shall not rest until he is at least punished for the state that this country has become." A large group of rebels shouted out in agreement, punching their fists in the air. Vivi gasped suddenly, her hands covering her mouth in surprise. Koza turned to see her face had turned unnaturally white. "Vivi? What's wrong?" Koza asked in concern. Vivi pointed a finger at the scarred-faced man's arm where the sleeve had rolled up when he had been shaking his fist in the air. At the top of his arm near the shoulder, a tattoo of a winged skull with two rapiers crossed behind it could be seen clearly. Right underneath it, the words Baroque works were etched. The man and those who had raised their hands hastily covered it, but those near them had already seen it. Koza's eyes flashed red in anger. "Everyone show me your arms. Bring those who have that tattoo in front." It didn't take long for the infiltrated agents to be brought up in chains and made to kneel in front of the rebel leader. Most of them had been part of the rebellion in its early stages. Any doubt the other rebels had of Vivi and Cobra's words had vanished by then, most of them already crying out to bring the organization to justice. Damn it! So we were already played from the start. Koza cursed at them. I was nothing but a pawn to your organization's plans. Cobra walked up to the agents, eyeing each of them carefully. Why would any of you do this to our country? Promises of wealth, most likely, Koza spat, disgust clear on his face. Vivi crouched down in front of them. I know there was a final phase in the organization's plans, but I couldn't discover what it was before I was found out. Tell me what it is and we'll set you free. Vivi. They can't be trusted. Koza glared hard at the agents. The agents shrunk back from the anger in his voice, quivering in fear. Koza, we have no choice, we need to know what else they have planned in order to stop it. Vivi pleaded. Tell us the plan, and I'll guarantee all of you safe passage out of this country, Cobra supplied. The agents still kept their mouths tightly shut. Koza grabbed the scar-faced man by his collar and shook him roughly. Say it, or I swear I will make the rest of your lives as painful as possible that you will scream for death. The man soiled his pants slightly, sweat pouring down from his face as he tried to find his voice. We were supposed to make the rebel army attack Aliabarna today. I don't know anything else, I swear. Is that the absolute truth? Koza shook him once more. The man gulped. Yes, sir. Our boss never told us anything else. I swear. Koza threw him back down on the ground roughly, turning back to the king and princess. They have something prepared for the capital. Vivi frowned, she looked calm but her hands were shaking slightly. We'll have to stop them, whatever it takes. Cobra nodded. Koza began barking orders to the rebels, sending messengers running to various posts to deliver the news of the trickery and their plans to head towards Aliabarna with the intention of stopping the rebellion. Koza furrowed his brows. It's time to end this war once and for all, too much has already been lost. We'll link up with the guard captains and those marines before heading back, Cobra agreed, already looking towards the direction of the capital. It was time to end the war. That wraps up this part of What If Luffy Became a Marine. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Just a quick reminder, the story What If Ichigo Had a Different Zanpakuto is now on hold as we have caught up with the author. So once again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the next project should be here on the channel. I'm currently considering these 3 fanfics. What if sign-in system in High School DxD? What if Ichigo awoke his true powers? What if Mangaka in One Piece world? Let me know which one you'd like to see next by voting in the poll. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.